If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description.
Chapter 131, Sublimation. Realizing this, Lorien almost burst out laughing out loud. Ha 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 ha, it seems that my calculating personality has harmed me quite a bit. Origin, hey, ah ha ha ha, so that's how it is. All in all, an origin doesn't affect a being's thoughts or personality, its awakening only makes him show his true self. At most, it gives people an incentive to remove the mask they have chosen to put on themselves. After all, an origin is what gave birth to said being in the first place. A being and his origin are not separate entities at all, rather, they are both one and the same. This could also be seen in Lorien himself, as even before starting his journey and awakening his power, he was always conflicted between accepting reality and following his dreams. It's just that at that time, he chose to accept reality, which also somewhat affected him after gaining his power, as this trait was amplified with him even starting to calculate and plan the smallest of things. Of course, this doesn't mean that Lorien couldn't just ignore this and continue being this calculating, it's just that right now, he didn't want to. As previously stated, origin doesn't affect a person's thoughts at all, so if one doesn't want to embrace it, he could just ignore it. Being able to do it doesn't mean one has to. This is similar to the previous case of the person who awakens the origin of evil but still decides to act just. This does indeed hinder his growth, however, it still won't stop it. It's just that Lorien doesn't have to do this, as there is no need to suppress his own nature, as it isn't anything like the aforementioned evil. If that were the case, Lorien wouldn't embrace it even if it were to help him become stronger a lot more quickly, he just wouldn't bother. This is analogous to how he refuses to use his power to devour a world, which he most probably can do. In Lorien's opinion, the measure of a person's true character and personality can only be achieved if said person is given a chance to do both good and evil with no real consequence, yet he still chooses to do good, or at the very least stay neutral, as Lorien chose to be. If a person's choices are based solely on circumstances, outside pressure, and social constraint, then those aren't truly choices. However, thankfully, Lorien didn't have to bother with such moral dilemmas as in his case. There is no need to suppress his nature at all. Suppressing dreams is like suppressing hope, it is completely self-defeating. So instead of suppressing it, why not embrace it, not to mention that reality is still part of his power and origin, so he doesn't have to suddenly start acting recklessly like a moron or a shonen protagonist. The change he has to do wasn't actually that great at all, as all that was required is to just worry less about things and to live his life more freely. He just has to keep a balance, it is as simple as that. However, right now, Lorien didn't have time to care about this, as he could feel that the moment he realized the true nature of his power, a sublimation occurred. At this moment, Lorien could feel that his power was transforming, no, to be more precise, it was just showing its true nature. Closing his eyes, Lorien's mind seemed to merge with this power, allowing him to feel every slight change. The first of which was his perception of the world and his senses. For perception, Lorien namely has two, the first being his dream perception, which allows him to sense and absorb dreams in a certain radius, and the second is his newly awakened reality sense, which allows him to sense reality for what it really is. However, following this transformation, both of those are now gone, as they somehow merged together, becoming a thing very similar to observation haki and divine sense, while also keeping the qualities and abilities of both those senses. Now, Lorien could sense and observe everything in an 11-24-meter radius as if he was using his own eyes, while also still being able to absorb dreams and see through falsehood. Feeling this, he couldn't help but become a bit fascinated. Never in his life had he observed the world in such clarity. However, things didn't end there, as the 1124 meters perception limit was somewhat lifted, or to be more precise, it became more natural. Previously, this limit was like a stone and functioned very mechanically as such. If distance equal or more than 1124 meters, then perception stop. At first glance, there may not seem to be an issue with that. However, if we were to take into consideration how normal human perception works, this would seem rather bizarre. After all, for humans, perception gets reduced gradually as it just becomes blurred the more distant things are. However, this distance still remains relevant, as it is the radius where Lorien's perception is unimpeded and remains clear. Going beyond that distance, his perception starts getting blurrier until it fades away on its own. It's just that this is still not the end, as Lorien also discovered that this is just his normal perception range without him using any of his power or energy to boost it. If he were to do so, this perception range will exponentially increase to an unknown range depending on how much power Lorien uses. For example, now with Lorien fully releasing his energy, not to mention this 1124 meters radius, he can even clearly overlook the clouds in the sky and rocks deep underground. It's just that the mutation and transformation of his perception wasn't the only thing that changed, as Lorien could also feel that he was much closer to the concepts of reality and dreams, which inadvertently allowed him to reduce the cost of using his abilities. For example, the same ability will now cost less than half of the energy he would have used to previously launch it. Feeling this, Lorien couldn't help but feel overjoyed, as this indirectly doubled his strength, not to mention that with the use of his newly awakened divine sense he now has a better view of his surroundings, which allows him to better utilize his power. Chapter 132, Lorien Airlines. Speaking of this divine sense, only now did Lorien truly realize what his previous dream perception and reality sense were based on. As previously stated, power is based on three distinct pillars, which are the body, the soul, and energy. Those three aspects act as fuel for most abilities and techniques that are more like applications. To launch a spiritual attack, use spiritual energy A.K. of the soul. To launch a physical attack, physical strength and stamina are used A.K. of the body. To launch an ability, anything can be used, however, in most cases, it is energy that is used. Previously, Lorien thought that his dream perception originated from his dreams and reality ability and was just an extension of it. However, only now, after feeling the true nature of his power and fully perceiving his own existence, did he realize that this perception actually originated from his soul or spirit, as he instinctively used it to scan the world outwards. The only reason this radius kept expanding each time Lorien absorbed dream energy was that his soul kept getting more powerful, which in turn pushed this radius further. The only reason Lorien was sensing dreams and absorbing them through this sense was that he was unconsciously using his ability through them, only then did he mistake it for being a sub-ability of his own power. When thinking about it this way, it seems that Lorien's use of this distance to measure his strength progress was actually quite correct and very accurate, as when absorbing energy, his three aspects progress in a unified manner. And with the increase of this distance representing the growth in soul power, it is only logical that it also signifies the increase of the other two aspects. You see, the neat thing about Lorien's ability is that it is mostly based on ideals rather than logic. In most cases, the only limit Lorien actually has is his own thoughts. If he thinks that he can do it, then he most likely can. If he doesn't think that he can do it, then he most definitely can't. It is as simple as that, so this can both be a good and a bad thing at the same time. However, just as Lorien was enjoying the moment, someone present there wasn't sharing the same feelings as he was getting ready to attack. Holding the black vortex of curses in his hand and feeling the transformation happening to Lorien, Ghetto's eyes shrank as he couldn't help but remembered a similar thing that happened to his friend before. It is always moments like this that shape destiny. I don't know what triggered this, but I better end it quickly. With this in mind, Ghetto immediately launched his attack, as this dark vortex instantly transformed into a black beam of energy that looked like it came out of a horror movie. Swish! Roar! However, it seems that Ghetto chose the worst possible time to attack, as right now, Lorien is closer than ever to the core of his ability, making him near completely merged with reality itself. So the moment such an attack was directed at him, he didn't have to do anything, as a defensive mechanism was instinctively launched. Buzz! Buzz! The moment it did, everything fell silent as the attack instantly froze midair. However, things didn't end there, as following that, this attack was silently erased from the world as if it was never there in the first place. It looked as if someone paused the world, took a picture of it, then used Photoshop to select the elements he didn't like, and then pressed delete. Such a scene was neither loud nor explosive, yet, such silence and incomprehensible power was truly chilling, as the moment this happened, Ghetto could feel a chill run down his spine. However, this still wasn't enough to make him shut up, as after reacting, he immediately burst out laughing crazily. Ha 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 ha, yes. This is it. If it is such power, then it most definitely can achieve our goal. It's just that even though his attack wasn't effective, it alongside his annoying laughter was still enough to finally wake Lorien up from his trance. Is this guy crazy? Thought Lorien as he looked at Ghetto's reaction speechlessly. However, looking at him right now, Lorien didn't feel any killing intent. Instead, he felt that Ghetto was a bit pleasing to the eye. I guess that I'll let you off this time with just an arm. Making his decision, Lorien didn't bother talking with his opponent as he raised his hand, causing the bracelet hidden by Ghetto to silently appear in his hand. Looking at it for a moment, Lorien nodded slightly and pocketed it before speaking. Sigh. Did nobody tell you that stealing things is bad? Well, I am in a great mood today, so I'll let you go with just this. Saying this, Lorien then raised his hand and extended it toward Geto, sticking at him very slowly. What is this? Seeing this movement, Geto's hair stood at its end as he saw Lorien's hand slowly and silently get closer. It's just that even though that was the case, he was still unable to dodge or defend this attack at all, as it felt completely illogical. I can't dodge. However, this is to be expected. After all, this attack is one that completely ignores distance and distorts causality. The moment this attack was launched, Lorien used his ability to do something he had never done before, as he felt that he was unable to, that is until now at least. And this was setting a rule which is attack launched equals hit. So the moment this attack was launched, as far as reality was concerned, this attack has already hit its target. It is now similar to the basic rules of physics itself, such as if we let go of an apple it will fall to the ground. So all things considered, no matter how far the distance is or how impossible this attack is to hit, it doesn't matter. The only thing those factors will affect was how much energy Lorien would spend to launch this rule. The only thing that may allow someone to dodge such an attack is the interference of another reality warper, someone using the power of destiny or cause and effect, or a law level being using his own law to counteract Lorien's ability or to anchor reality using it. However, Geto has none of those, so all he could do was desperately watch this attack get closer at a pace similar to that of a turtle. Boom! Crack! With his right hand flying into the air and getting pushed back by the power of the attack, Geto coughed a bit of blood and held his injured shoulder. Cough! Cough! Seeing this, Lorien didn't wait for Geto to respond, as he scratched his head and offered an apology. You may face some difficulties when doing certain activities in the future, so sorry about that. Following this, Lorien raised his right hand again and pushed it forward as if he was pushing the air away. Boom! Swish! However, this time, it wasn't an attack, as the moment Lorien did this, Geto was launched into the distance like a rocket before he could react. You welcomed me to this country, so it's only fair if I send you off myself. However, this is our first test flight at Lorien Airlines, so there may be some turbulence. We express our deepest apologies for that. Nodding slightly, Lorien praised his own politeness as a smirk silently appeared on his face. It's just that he may not like the destination I chose for him. Chapter 133, Open Domains. Smiling happily, Lorien couldn't help but imagine Geto's face when he pulls himself out of the dumpster he prepared for him as a landing spot. This should teach him a lesson. Taking a deep breath, Lorien then immediately took back the energy and aura he was constantly emitting, as he felt a bit exhausted. This, as a consequence, caused Lorien to return to his normal ordinary appearance. Moreover, with Lorien's energy that was acting as fuel disappearing, the beautiful aurora in the sky slowly faded away, to the dismay of those who were watching and taking videos and photos of it. Hey! Where did it disappear? A pity. Yes, such a rare scene won't appear for hundreds if not thousands of years, at least not in this place. This doesn't seem to be natural. I agree, maybe some experiment went wrong or something. Should we be worried? I really want to go to Iceland now. It's just that Lorien had no idea about this, nor did he care. After all, constantly releasing such a large amount of energy is exhausting. Moreover, he wouldn't do this just to create such a scene. If he wanted to, he would just distort reality to achieve the same results, which would be less costly energy-wise. Speaking of energy, after the release of all that energy and the strike that crossed space and reversed causality, Lorien could feel that his energy reserves were nearly rock bottom. Perceiving this, he touched the ring worn on his finger as he mobilized the energy stored inside of it and absorbed it to restore his state. Swish! With energy gushing out of the sword that is now shaped like a ring, Lorien was able to return to his peak state in less than a minute. Feeling this, he couldn't help but praise his decision of giving his weapon an energy accumulation ability. At first, Lorien created it with the thoughts that he'll use it in battle. However, he never had the chance to do so, as most of the time, he stumped his opponents without any real challenge whatsoever. Now, this ability mostly acts as a power bank, which is about 2 times his own source energy reserves. Moreover, this storage also increases with the strengthening of the sword itself, similar to any other ability it has. It's just that after restoring his state, Lorien didn't care much about this, as it wasn't anything new. Rather, he turned his attention to the dilapidated place as his mouth started to twitch uncontrollably. I should have cut both his arms. However, Lorien ignored the important fact that the damage was actually done by himself, not Geto. And speaking of the guy, Lorien couldn't help but feel a bit of regret right now. It's a pity that it's still Geto. If it were Kenjaku, I would have taken the opportunity to analyze his domain. Thinking about Kenjaku's domain, Lorien's eyes couldn't help but shine with a bit of greed. After all, this is the only open barrier type domain that he knew of other than Sukuna's malevolent shrine. Such domains are very different from normal domains as they don't create a separate space within a barrier. Instead, those domains directly manifest onto reality while also retaining the ability to have a sure hit effect without requiring a barrier. Because of this, they are considered to be divine techniques, as the ability to realize one's innate domain without using a barrier is akin to an artist drawing on thin air instead of a canvas. And this is exactly why Lorien is so interested in them, as all things considered, such domains have the potential to remove the limits Lorien has on his own power, which is his inability to affect things that he doesn't touch. Lorien has been bypassing this for a while by using the air as a medium. However, this is still very inconvenient and annoying. This alone is enough to show how incredible this domain is, so it is no wonder that even Lorien feels a bit greedy. I am looking forward to meeting you, Sukuna, Kenjaku. Ha 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 ha. Laughing lightly, Lorien began using his power to restore everything to its prior state. After all, he still needed somewhere to sleep, not to mention that this house was quite good. Dream/reality, reverse. And like that, with Lorien's power acting, the world seemed to pause for a moment before starting to backtrack. Brick by brick, element by element, everything returned to its original place as if time was turning backward, and as such, it only took about a few minutes for everything to return to its initial state. Looking at this, Lorien nodded in satisfaction as he also felt somewhat relieved. Thankfully, I had the foresight to order that no servant is to be deployed at my estate, no maids, cooks, or bodyguards. Otherwise, those guys would be in for the surprise of their lives. After all, unlike cursed techniques and energy, my power is visible even to normal people. Shaking his head, Lorien didn't bother with this anymore as he made his way to the bedroom he found using divine sense to get some rest. I hope that those jujutsu sorcerers don't find this place so quickly. I want to get some sleep, otherwise, I'll be beating whoever comes first, unless it's a beautiful lady. Cough. Jokes aside, Lorien's eyes narrowed slightly as a somewhat serious look appeared on his face. It would be best if it's Gojo. I really want to beat him up for some reason, and no, it's not because he looks somewhat like me. Additionally, his domain expansion will be a great thing to analyze considering its strength and cohesion. After analyzing it, I'll start making my own domain. Procrastinating any longer would be useless as the information and knowledge to gain after that is minimal and is nearly of no use. Chapter 134, Reaction, Perception, and Thoughts. Meanwhile, just as Lorien was walking around the house deciding to explore it before heading to bed, the jujutsu sorcerers in Tokyo were going crazy. After all, their profession has always been a hidden one, and secrecy is one of their main core principles. However, the thing that happened today touched that bottom line, which predictably caused a strong reaction from the higher UPS. Normal people may not have been able to perceive the immense amount of energy that was released. At most, they'll feel some pressure pressing over them. However, this is not the case for jujutsu sorcerers, as the moment Lorien flared up his energy, almost every sorcerer in Tokyo felt it. So now, with the sudden emergence of such a large amount of energy that even caused an effect visible to normal people, one could easily guess what'll happen next. Truthfully, if it were just the energy, the higher UPS wouldn't have had that big of a reaction. At most, they would order people to conduct a normal investigation. However, the aurora that appeared really touched their nerves. Not to mention that such a thing happening right next to their lair was a bit provoking. Did they find where it originated from? Only the approximate location. It only lasted for a few minutes, so that's to be expected. That energy was quite strong, it's just that. That was not cursed energy, it felt closer to positive energy. No, it felt more than that. Send everyone available to investigate. Once the source is found, first-grade sorcerers should take over. Where is Gojo? Not in Tokyo at the moment. Humph, just when we need him. She's in Tokyo right now. Right. Then send her. She should be very interested in such a thing anyways. Let's contact her right now. I agree. Approved. Meanwhile, just as the sorcerers were quickly organizing themselves, Lorien could be seen standing in the kitchen next to a table. He had just finished exploring the place and is now preparing a small snack to eat before going to bed. As for paying attention to what the sorcerers were doing, he cared about that as much as he cared about the health negatives of eating before going to bed. Basically zero fucks. After all, considering all the weird techniques and treasures those guys have, he knew that finding him is just a matter of time, so he didn't bother thinking about it, not to mention that Lorien didn't want to hide in the first place. Besides, when they find him, he'll be able to instantly detect them using his divine sense, so there is no such thing as a surprise factor. The moment anyone enters a 1124 meters radius of him, he'll be able to detect it. Moreover, this detection can't be fooled or tricked, as Lorien doesn't just use such things as energy levels or aura to detect people's strengths, those are just the basics. Rather, his perception is mostly based on something that comes with his reality warping power, which is his perception of how hard things are to warp. For example, after awakening his ability, Lorien perceived everything other than living beings as mud, which is very easy to alter. However, even this mud has grades, as the stronger it is, the harder warping it becomes. A normal iron lump simply can't compare to vibranium. And this is exactly what Lorien's perception is primarily based on, as the moment someone enters his perception range, he could feel how hard it would be to use his power to affect them. Lorien may still not be able to directly alter living being, at least not maliciously, however, he could still perceive the difference in strength between individuals based on that perception. And so, like that, Lorien can easily detect when someone strong gets close to him. Even if someone like Toji tries to get close, he could still instantly feel his presence. It's just that Lorien truly didn't care much about this now, as his train of thoughts traveled to something he had previously ignored. The techniques those guys have, I should find some time to go and analyze them. However, considering their views on things and how they kept a monopoly over cursed techniques for all those years, trading with them will be nigh impossible. I might have to force my way this time. After all, the higher UPS here are very different from Kaguya and Demon Slayer, who didn't care about power, they mostly care about their interests and how to strengthen their rights. Asking them to trade techniques to outsiders is simply outrageous. I mean, they held such control of the techniques and abilities that even the ones that I got in Tunisia were either the public and simple ones, newly made ones innately born from jujutsu sorcerers and then recorded, or just weak copies made after observing the original techniques. Even the barrier techniques were just copies. The only reason they are now equal to the original, if not better, is that I always use my power to further analyze and improve the techniques after learning them. Tisk, it's truly a miracle that Leela was able to reach special grade level, Sarah was only able to reach semi-special grade with my help, as for the others, they are only grade 1. However, in a true battle of the same level, they would most likely get overwhelmed because of the differences in skills and techniques, with Leela being an exception because of her weird ability. But this may not stay true for long, as I provided them with blank techniques and improved the techniques there. Now, with enough time, that place will also become a new capital of jujutsu sorcerers. Taking some Nutella and spreading it on his bread alongside some butter, Lorien couldn't help but think about the future of Japan. Brain dude, calling games, and a golden era. Really, trying to force evolution through such means, quite the inferior method. However, their plan happens to be in conflict with mine, as such chaos is bad for business. Trees won't be planted and won't be able to propagate. Thinking of this, Lorien's eyes narrowed slightly as a smile appeared on his face. It seems that I have to pay them a visit, not to mention that I don't like seeing such a large number of people dying. I may not be a good guy, but I am not a bad guy either, so all things considered, I am not on Brain's side. However, this also doesn't mean that I am on Sorcerer's side either, as I still want those techniques. Ha ha ha, I don't care anymore, let's let things progress naturally, I just hope that it provides me with some fun. Chapter 135, What kind of girls do you like? Meanwhile, just as Lorien was contemplating the prospects of looking for Tenjin, forcing the jujutsu techniques out of his brain, and then killing him to prevent all the headaches with the calling game, a shooting star was finally nearing its destination. Swish! Leaving a trail of dark light behind caused by cursed energy, Geto looked like a shooting star as he pierced through the air. However, his free flight trial didn't last long, as he soon reached his destination, landing right inside the big garbage bin Lorien prepared for him. Sweesh! However, the moment this was about to happen, Geto's speed instantly got reduced, allowing him to land gently inside of it. Nevertheless, there was still enough force to make him get buried deep inside. Crackle! Boom! However, just moments later, the bin exploded, causing trash to be sent flying everywhere, and from the debris, Geto limped out, leaning against the wall next to him for support, looking very disgusted. Removing the baby diaper that got stuck into his Buddhist clothes, he flared up his energy, instantly pushing any other trash away. But, even after doing that, the look of revolt still remained on his face as the bad smell stuck to him. Cough. Cough. Disgusting. This guy really does hold a grudge. Shaking his head and pushing those thoughts aside, Geto stopped moving and turned his back to the wall, leaning all of his weight on it while using his remaining hand to hold his injured shoulder, applying pressure on it to try and stop the bleeding. I must find a reverse curse technique user to help me heal it as soon as possible, otherwise, my combat capability will be greatly impacted. Cough. Coughing up a bit of blood, Geto was finally unable to hold himself anymore, causing him to fall to the floor, his back still leaning on the wall. Raising his head and looking at the sky, he fell silent for a moment before a wild smile appeared on his face as he burst out laughing. Ah ha 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 ha. What a miscalculation. This time I really misjudged things. I almost died, ah ha 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 ha. Taking a deep breath, Geto's wild laughter stopped, however, the smile on his face still remained unchanged. That last strike, truly amazing. Was it cause and effect or time and space? However, what was that energy? That was not cursed energy at all. I really want to study it. Special grade? Ha ha ha, I don't think he should be graded as such. So even Gojo may not be the strongest. Ha 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 ha, it seems that he finally has a rival now. However, turning a bit serious, the smile on Geto's face finally disappeared, getting replaced by a frown as he couldn't help but ponder. Why did this guy come to Japan and what are his motives? Which side is he on and will he intervene with our plan now that he knows about us? The possibility of this happening isn't that big as he had just let me go. If he wanted to prevent all of this, he would have killed me right here and now. With his frown growing deeper, Geto's mind worked at full speed but to no avail. He couldn't tell what Lorien's motives were based on the small amount of information he has on him. This only brings more questions. However, just as Geto was brainstorming, the noise of hurried footsteps sounded as two twins suddenly came running from around the corner. Geto! Are you all right? Are you okay? Hearing this, Geto was immediately woken up from his small daze as he then turned his attention to the twins, responding with a smile on his face. Yes, I am fine, it's just that I met a monster. Unbeknown to him, all of this was happening right under Lorien's watchful eyes. After all, for him to be able to send Geto precisely into a garbage bin without evoking certain rules, he has to be within his perception range. Moreover, Lorien wanted to have a first-seat view of Geto's face after he lands in the garbage bin, and now that his curiosity was satisfied, Lorien swallowed the last bite of bread in his hand as he walked toward the bedroom with a look of disinterest in his face. Quite the boring reaction. Oh, where was the bedroom again? The next day. Right in front of the house Lorien is now living in, a motorbike suddenly came to halt as a young blonde-haired woman got off of it. Glancing at the house, this woman then removed the goggles she was wearing as she then started observing it more closely. Is this the place? Doesn't look like it, I can't feel any presence inside. Weird, there should be someone here according to the information I received. However, just as she thought of this, the gates in front of her swung open on their own, causing her to smile. It seems that I am at the right place. It's just that even though she looked cheerful, she instantly became wary as she raised her guard up. Guess I am wrong then. I felt no cursed energy, and there was no mechanism that made the door open, something else controlled it. Thinking of this, she was instantly riled up as joy appeared in her eyes. I think this may be it. Not hesitating any longer, the woman took a deep breath as she walked with steady steps entering the estate. No matter the danger, she still has confidence in her own strength. Quickly enough, she made it through the front yard and reached the main door, which also opened on its own. Walking through it without hesitation, the woman then followed a small trail of light that appeared in front of her to guide her. I am sure this is not created by cursed energy. Following it slowly, she continued observing this light with great interest, trying to determine how it was made. However, she didn't have to do this for long as she soon made it to a dining room where she saw Lorien sitting on the table with a large breakfast in front of him. Hello there. Sorry for not welcoming you myself, however, I am a bit busy as you can see, said Lorien as he then pointed to a chair close to him before continuing. I assume you didn't have time to eat breakfast, so you could join me if you please. Hearing this, the woman didn't respond at first, rather, she looked at Lorien with a smile before laughing and responding. What kind of girls do you like? Chapter 136, Yuki Tsukumo. What kind of girl do I like? Hearing this, Lorien's eyebrows rose slightly, appearing a bit stunned. Even though he expected something like that after determining the identity of the visitor, he didn't think that this would be the first thing she says after meeting him. Ha ha ha. However, after reacting, Lorien instantly busted out laughing and responded. I don't have a specific type, I mostly go with the flow, why limit the infinite possibilities? Hearing this, Yuki Tsukumo felt surprised, not expecting such a response. However, after pausing and thinking about it for a moment, she said. You do have a point, however, I still prefer a hard-working, tough guy who isn't afraid to get his hands dirty. Limiting your options, aren't you? Maybe. With the atmosphere relaxing, Lorien shook his head slightly as he leaned back and spoke again. Well, let's leave this aside for now, why don't you have a seat? Excuse me then. Sitting at the table, Yuki glanced at the food in front of her for a moment before ignoring it and turning her full attention toward Lorien as she started observing him. Even now I still can't feel his presence, if it weren't for my vision, I would think that he wasn't even there in the first place. This reminds me of Toji Fushiguro, so he's either someone with a similar physique, or he's the one I've always been looking for. And he's also handsome. Just as Yuki was observing him, Lorien was doing the same. After all, this is one of his favorite characters in the original. Bold and highly energetic, as expected. What was her cursed technique again? Oh, it is mass. Quite the powerful ability. In terms of destruction, she has the potential to truly destroy the planet, which is much stronger than Gojo. One suicide attack from her without care and without the presence of any other variable may be able to do the trick. Sigh. It's just a pity that she... With a light sigh exiting his mouth, Lorien didn't continue thinking about this as it was just a waste of time. He is sure that there exists a better use of his time. Of course, all of this happened in a matter of seconds, as all it took was a couple of glances for both sides to judge the other. However, this period of observation didn't continue any longer as Lorien suddenly spoke. Well, I don't mind having you as a guest, however, what brings you here? Jolting a bit, Yuki woke up from her daze and instantly cleared her mind before responding. I was sent here to check the origin of the disturbance. I thought that you were not aligned with Jujutsu High and that you don't take missions. Did anything change? That is still the case, it's just that there is something here that I want to check, and getting information from them is a lot more convenient than looking for it myself. At least this way, I don't have to waste time looking for you on my own. So you are just using each other? That's right. Well, now tell me, did you find what you were looking for? Said Lorien, leaning forward with a teasing look on his face. Hearing this, Yuki's eyes seemed to be lit on fire as her face turned serious. Right now, nothing was more attractive to her than Lorien, or at least the mystery he has in his body. I think so. But I still need to verify it, so could you please show me the energy released yesterday? Touching his chin, Lorien's eyes narrowed slightly, thinking about his next course of action. I know what she wants, and I probably can help her to achieve it. If it were before, I wouldn't bother doing so. After all, it is too much pain in the ass without any real benefits. However, she's in luck, as I was just thinking about doing something similar. Nevertheless, I still need to see what she truly wants for myself. Having information from the original is far from enough. Deciding on this, Lorien didn't hesitate any longer as he smiled at her and responded as he raised his index finger in front of him. Are you talking about this? On the tip, a small ball of multicolored source energy appeared. This ball then floated toward Yuki and stopped in front of her face under Lorien's control. And seeing this energy, Yuki immediately ignored Lorien and turned her full attention toward it. What is this energy? It is neither cursed nor positive energy, and it seems that it has no relationship with cursed spirits. The only feeling that I get from it is vagueness and, dreaminess. It is a completely new energy. Realizing this, the hot look in Yuki's eyes intensified as her breath quickened a bit. This may be it. With this, humans can break away from the shackles of cursed energy. Unable to hold back her curiosity, Yuki slowly raised her hand to touch it. However, to her dismay, before she could do so, the energy disappeared on its own, which caused her to look at Lorien with a face full of dissatisfaction. Seeing this, Lorien didn't care as he shrugged and said, "That should do it for now. So did you find what you came here for?" I did. So, what are you going to do about it now?" Hearing this and seeing Lorien's narrowed eyes, Yuki looked puzzled for a moment. However, she soon understood what Lorien meant, which caused her to face palm. "Are you talking about the investigation mission given by those guys? I don't care about it. They may care about the leakage of information about sorcerers, however, I don't. Saying this, she paused for a moment before continuing. I haven't officially introduced myself yet, have I? That was a bit rude. Well, my name is Yuki Tsukumo, a special grade sorcerer. Nice to meet you. My name is Lorien, an entrepreneur, I guess. Hearing this, Yuki rolled her eyes, not believing his bullshit. However, she didn't point it out as she moved the subject forward. Do you want to hear a story? Chapter 137, New Path. I don't want to. Hearing this, Yuki instantly swallowed what she was about to say, opening her mouth and closing it but not releasing any words, and seeing this, Lorien instantly busted out laughing and said. Just joking, go ahead. You. Sigh. Giving off a long sigh, she then leaned back on the chair, resting her back on it, and started sulking. I hate you. However, Lorien just smiled and responded. So you don't want to tell me any more? The moment Lorien said this, Yuki instantly straightened her back and responded while waving her hand back and forth. I'm just kidding. Saying this, she coughed lightly as her face then turned serious. Cough. Do you know what cursed spirits are and how they are born? Yes, I do. Excellent, then do you know how to rid the world of them? Hearing this, Lorien's eyes narrowed slightly as he knew what she was about to say. However, even though he understood that her thoughts were wrong, he chose to wait as he wanted to see if there was any difference from the original. So with this in mind, he responded. Do tell me. Well, there are two ways of creating a world devoid of cursed spirits. The first is to make all of humanity able to control their cursed energy, and the second is to make all humans lose it altogether. Doing so, no cursed energy will be released to the environment, which will in consequence cause no cursed spirits to be born. Lowering her head, she looked at her own hands, clenching them tightly. For the first option, this actually has something to do with sorcerers. Did you know that sorcerers leak way less cursed energy? Meaning that if all of humanity were to become sorcerers, no curse would be born anymore. Of course, killing all normal humans will also do the trick. Saying this, she shrugged a bit and continued explaining. This is the easiest way to go, however, I am not nearly that crazy to do so. Taking a deep breath, she looked out the window as the figure of Ghetto suddenly appeared in her mind. But, there is still someone who is that crazy. Shaking her head, she didn't want to delve more into this as she was more interested in the second option. So after taking a deep breath, she turned her head again toward Lorien and looked him straight in the eye. I am actually more optimistic about the second option. I think that it is a pretty good route to take, as there is the example of Toji and his heavenly binding curse, which allowed him to become the only case of someone with zero cursed energy yet still possessing immense strength and somehow gaining resistance to cursed energy instead. However, it's a pity that he didn't allow me to study him at the time, and now with his death, this only example is completely gone. Saying this, a grin appeared on her face as she looked at Lorien. But now, you showed up with a completely different energy that has nothing to do with cursed energy and spirits. If this energy were to replace the current power system, then no cursed spirit will be born again. Taking a deep breath, she then lowered her head slightly and said in a begging tone, even disregarding her pride as a special grade sorcerer. Could you please tell me how you got this energy and if it is possible to spread it? However, to her dismay, she noticed that Lorien actually had a bored look on his face, appearing completely uninterested in what she said, which caused her heart to sink. So, taking a deep breath, she couldn't help but question Lorien. Does getting rid of cursed spirits and ridding humans of this danger not interest you? Hearing this, Lorien gave off a long sigh and finally responded, completely skipping the subject of his source energy. I appreciate your explanation, however, it is still flawed. What do you mean? Why do you think cursed spirits and sorcerers appeared? Cursed spirits appeared because of the negative energy emitted by people, and sorcerers appeared as a consequence to fight back. So, what is the mission of sorcerers? It is killing cursed spirits, which is frankly just treating the symptoms and not the cause. Well, that is correct, but still a bit shallow. Hearing this, a frown appeared on Yuki's face as she didn't know what Lorien was getting at. However, she still remained calm and asked. Then can you explain? Sigh. Well, this has something to do with the world itself. The world? Yes, actually. Cursed spirits and sorcerers are just a mechanism that the world uses to clear negative energy and turn it into absorbable energy so it could grow stronger. Seeing the puzzled look on Yuki's face, Lorien face-palmed as he knew that he had to explain from the beginning. Sigh. Let's start with the basics. Absorbable and non-absorbable energy. the world doesn't want to waste, cursed spirits and sorcerers, a ritual, tools. The more Lorien spoke, the more Yuki's face became hard to look at as it started twisting, looking somewhat desperate. Right now, all she knew about the world was crumbling slowly right in front of her eyes. And by the time Lorien finished speaking, sorrow could be seen on her face as she couldn't help but growl at him. You aren't lying, are you? Are we just tools? However, seeing this, Lorien just shook his head indifferently and responded in a cold tone, causing Yuki to freeze in place, her heart sinking further. Technically, yes. However, even in this situation, she quickly restored her calm. It's just that she couldn't help but whisper, unknown if she was talking to Lorien or to herself. So all I did was for nothing. However, just after saying this, she focused her attention on Lorien and asked. Then what about your energy? Hearing this, Lorien just shrugged and explained plainly. This energy is only unique to me, it is impossible for anybody else to use it. Even though Yuki somewhat expected this after seeing that Lorien skipped the subject earlier, hearing it now, she still felt disappointed. Moreover, now that she knew the full story, this feeling was much deeper. So there is nothing we can do about it. Finally waiting for this question, a grin silently appeared on Lorien's face as he said, instantly rekindling Yuki's hope. There is. What is it? A new power system, a new path. Chapter 138, Pathfinder, Pathwalkers. A new power system? Didn't you just say that the existing power system is caused by the will of the world and changing it will be nigh impossible? Questioned Yuki with a confused look on her face. That is only half true. Responded Lorien. Then what is it? And what power system are you talking about? Moreover, isn't your energy not spreadable? Continued Yuki, pressing for answers. This has nothing to do with my energy, the power system that I want to create is a brand new one. But this still doesn't answer my first question. Then let me ask you again, why were Jujutsu sorcerers born in the first place? Hearing this question, Yuki paused for a moment, not knowing what Lorien was up to. If it was before, she would have immediately answered with killing cursed spirits. However, she now knew that this was only the incomplete answer. With this in mind, she fell into deep thoughts, trying to guess what Lorien was getting at. Jujutsu sorcerers, killing cursed spirits, purify energy, become absorbable, wait. Purify energy. Reaching this link in her chain of thoughts, Yuki's eyes brightened as she guessed what Lorien was planning. However, she still wanted a clear confirmation. Are you saying that if the new power system can replace the purifying function of the old system, then we could safely replace it? Hearing this, Lorien looked at Yuki with some appreciation and responded. Exactly. Getting the answer she wanted, Yuki's eyes shone brighter as the fire of hope lit up again. However, she still wanted to know more about the details. After all, she didn't want to work hard just to make things worse. How are you planning to launch this power system? And is it really viable? Can you please tell me more about it? Hearing this, Lorien fell silent. However, that wasn't because he had no plan, rather it was just that he didn't know how to express it. Actually, this whole idea of creating a new power system wasn't something he came up with just for fun, rather, it is something he had been thinking about for a long time. However, only now after the sublimation did he finally decide to put his thoughts into action. It's just that before talking about the power system, we first need to talk about the objective and reason behind making it. You see, Lorien has noticed that he was growing stronger in a very easy and simple manner, as all he needs to do is simply absorb dream energy, reality, or just sleep for a couple of thousands of years to absorb his own dreams and grow. However, this is far from ideal. After all, compared to those who grow stronger with hard work and practice, his willpower is very much lacking. Not to mention, he also lacks the tempering that comes with experience in combat. This may not be an issue when battling those who are weaker or have abilities inferior to his, but when facing beings who have power of the same level as his, there is a big chance that he'll be suppressed. To remedy this, Lorien has been practicing another path, which is martial arts, while also trying to absorb and learn as much as possible from each world he visits. However, this is still not enough. After all, there is no clear path to walk on, which made things very random and caused Lorien to feel as if there is no direction to move towards. And so, Lorien decided to create his own path, his own way. Moreover, he also needs to find a way to reach the law level and in the future the transcendent level, and why not even higher realms. However, he very much doubts the possibility of him reaching those levels by simply absorbing energy. Not to mention that there is another benefit to creating a power system, which is being its ancestor. As such, he'll receive feedback as more people practice it and grow stronger using it. Moreover, there is the luck he receives after giving the world a new path. So with all of this in mind, he began planning this creation. It's just that weirdly and luckily enough, he soon found out that he had miraculously collected most of the elements he needed. However, to make things clear, Lorien doesn't want to create a power system like the ones he saw in those cultivation novels. That would be just making things hard for himself. The power system Lorien wants to make is actually a very simple one that allows for the quick birth of strong people, to be on the just and righteous side, not affecting the world negatively, and to still function as a filter in a way to purify the world, to have a strong combat power in the same level, to not be complex, and to most importantly allow the path takers to strengthen and forge their willpower. This may sound hard to do, however, Lorien had already thought of a way to achieve it, and it is based on 6 very important things. The first is the fact that all people dream, and when they do so, a dream world is automatically and innately created. The second is something he had gained just after reaching this world, which is the ability to create nightmare creatures similar to cursed spirits. The third is his study and knowledge of negative and positive energy. The fourth is the ability seed he learned to make from the Demon Slayer world. The fifth is the breathing technique, and finally, it is Lorien's ability to turn dreams into reality. So based on those pillars, Lorien plans to divide this power system into 3 levels. The first is Awakened, where the person awakens an ability and gains energy. This ability is based on the ability seed from the Demon Slayer world and the Jujutsu techniques he is planning to study. As for the energy, Lorien plans to make it a neutral energy, mixing both the negative and positive energy, keeping the nature and characteristics of both. This level signifies that the Pathwalker reached the extraordinary level. Note: this won't turn into a cultivation novel. I repeat, this won't turn into a cultivation novel. Note 2, I am mostly using the MC's perspective, which is not omnipotent. They simply express his opponent at a certain moment in time, so while he creates this system/path, I haven't decided yet if he will ever walk it. Note 3, for now, the most possible outcome is for him to gain something from this path and then move on. Note 4, there are other hidden uses for this, and it won't be used a step-by-step cultivation or anything like that. Chapter 139, Path of Dreams, Path of Reality. As for the second level, it is called Inner Dream, and it is here where this path truly shows its true unpredictable nature. You see, this level is based on the fact that everyone has dreams, and when they do, a dream world is automatically created. It's just that for most people, those dreams are very vague and are quickly forgotten. A lot of the time those dreams actually reflect a person's inner thoughts, and deepest fears. So taking advantage of this and using his newfound knowledge on how to create nightmare creatures, Lorien plans to make it so that in this level, such beings will be created from the person's inner fears, and what this person has to do is fight them, and kill them. This whole level is actually just a battle with one's inner demons, fears, and nightmares. And because those nightmares became real because of Lorien's power, after killing them the Pathwalker will absorb them, thereby becoming stronger. In simple terms, inner fears give birth to real creatures which can be killed, so the person grows stronger, which is very similar to how video games work. Moreover, it is to be noted that this absorption is comprehensive and strengthens all the aspects of a person, be it his energy, body, or soul. However, killing those nightmares is much harder than one may think. After all, they can't be killed through sheer power and strength. You see, the main thing about dreams is the fact that one can get whatever he wants there. It is very linked with belief and willpower, and is very idealistic rather than logical. So if the person who is fighting thinks consciously or subconsciously that he can't bypass and defeat his fears, then he won't be able to do so no matter how strong he is. And inversely, if his belief and willpower are very strong, then, even if he is weaker than his nightmares strength-wise, he could defeat them thanks to the boost he'll get in the dream. And in doing so, the person cleanses his heart of anxiety, fear, and worry, and in turn achieves true calmness and serenity and strengthens his willpower. It's just that inner fears are after all limited, and after cleansing all of them this level finally reaches its conclusion. And it is here where the next level appears, which is Outer Dreams. This level is actually very similar to the previous one in how one grows stronger by killing nightmares. However, those nightmare creatures are no longer created by one's inner fears, rather, they are born from the negative energy present in the world. There are 2 ways to kill those creatures. The first is by absorbing negative energy into one's dream realm and letting them be born there before killing them. And the second is accessing the worldwide dream realm that Lorien is planning to create, which will absorb all the negative energy in the world and let nightmares get born freely there. As such, no negative energy will be left alone, which will prevent cursed spirits from being born again. However, even though there is a bit of a difference between those two methods, the essence is still the same. Want to become stronger? Then fight. It's just that we still have to note that in this level, the person doesn't get the full energy and power of the nightmare creatures he kills, rather, he just gets 50% while the rest goes to the world. And this is basically what this path is all about. As for the method of reaching the law level, well, it is still the same, just let nightmare creatures at the law level be born and then kill them, thereby instantly reaching that level. No need to slowly learn and comprehend rules, no need to gather knowledge and plan hard, just fight. After all, once the nightmare is killed, even his comprehension and understanding of the power will be inherited by the killer. However, this is only possible because of the essence of dreams, which is very idealistic. Otherwise, fighting a law level being without having laws would be suicidal at best. It's just that there are still a lot of things lacking before Lorien could perfect this path, of which is knowledge about the soul, more knowledge about barriers and curse techniques, and most importantly knowledge about the method of letting law-level nightmares be born. The first two are available in this world, as for the last, Lorien still needs to look for it in another world. Not to mention that Lorien still has no idea about how to reach the transcendent level or how it would go with this path. However, this is to be expected. After all, it would be weird if he knew how to reach that level at his current strength level. It's just that, even though Lorien plans to spread this path seed to all people in the world and let it hereditary like in the Naruto world, he isn't planning on letting everyone awaken. After all, if all people gain this ability, then no negative energy will be spread, which will cause nightmare creatures to not be born, and in turn dream walkers, as Lorien calls them, won't be able to grow. So, Lorien plans to let a small number of people awaken, and those people are the kind-hearted, and those who produce a small amount of negative energy. As for those who are evil and produce a large amount of negative energy, their chance of awakening is near zero. This is mainly for two reasons. The first is that those kind-hearted have less evil in their heart and can practice this path much easier, and the second is simply to not push this world into chaos, as Lorien's objective never was to affect normal people. So it's better to give power and strength to those kind-hearted, at least that way the world may become a better place. So after planning everything and getting his story straight, Lorien started explaining this power system to Yuki, who has been impatiently waiting for him to respond. Dreams, nightmares, 3 levels. The more he spoke, the more interested Yuki became. However, at the end of Lorien's speech, a frown appeared on her face as she couldn't help but question again. How are you planning to create that dream world, as you call it? Creating such a thing at a worldwide scale would be impossible. Don't worry about that. I have already prepared everything. I just need to get more information and knowledge about barriers and curse techniques. I also need to catch someone with knowledge or power related to the soul. I see. Falling into deep thoughts, Yuki started thinking seriously about this plan and its feasibility of it. Seeing this, Lorien didn't interrupt her as he calmly took a sip from the coffee in front of him. However, by the time he put the cup back on the table, Yuki had already raised her head again and spoke firmly. Let me help you then. Hearing this, a smile appeared on Lorien's face. After all, the reason he talks so much is to get her on his side. After all, Lorien is very lazy, and he frankly doesn't want to do everything himself, so it is necessary to get someone powerful to work for him, and what better option than Yuki? So after hearing her request, he didn't hesitate as he immediately nodded in agreement and said as he extended his right hand. All right then. Welcome. Please do take care of me. Chapter 140, Time Skip. Point 1. Laying sprawled on a comfortable-looking chair with his feet propped up on the executive desk before him, Lorien rested his head back as he gazed blankly at the ceiling, his thoughts drifting aimlessly. After a while, he stood up, his legs unfolding effortlessly as he strode over to the glass window behind him. From there, he observed the busy street below, and the constant stream of cars and people bustling about who were completely unaware of his presence. However, the scenes below weren't the only thing that entered his mind, as even from his position, he was able to observe in great detail everything that happened in a 1,414 meters radius. This is thanks to the strength improvement he had in the past 7 months, as the comprehensive strengthening, which included the soul, caused as a consequence an increase in his divine sense normal state clear perception range from the previous 1,124 meters to the now 1,414 meters. Frankly, in this modern era, finding dream energy has never been easier. If it weren't for the limits of how much he could absorb each day and the fact the dream trees haven't spread yet, his increase in strength would have been much more dramatical. However, despite all this chaotic information entering his brain, Lorien remained lost in thought as the world around him faded into a blur as he pondered deeply. It's been 7 months since he had first set foot in Japan, and now, the long-awaited November was finally upon him. Realizing this, he couldn't help but think back about what had happened in this period of time. However, just as he was about to dive into his memory palace, a sudden knock sounded and was quickly followed by an upbeat voice. "May I come in?" Hearing this call, Lorien shook his head, quickly waking up from his state, and responded, "Enter." Following his answer, the door then gently opened, revealing a youthful woman with a slender figure. She had shoulder-length black hair, brown eyes, and wore an official suit. Seeing her, Lorien couldn't help but think back to the first time he met her and the surprise he felt when he did. After all, seeing her in his company was the last thing he expected, as she was actually someone from the original timeline. And this woman is Nagi Yoshino, Junpei's dead mother. Cough. Throwing those thoughts aside, Lorien cleared his mind and asked, "Did you check what I asked you to?" "Yes, I did." She nodded in response before continuing, "According to the reports, all the trees were successfully planted and no accidents happened." Hearing this, a look of joy appeared on Lorien's face as he couldn't help but clap twice and shout out loud, "Great!" Seeing this reaction, Nagi got startled a bit, as she didn't know why her boss would be so excited about trees getting planted. From the rumors she's heard, she knew that he was the founder of the now very famous non-profit organization called Dream Project. However, even though what happened could be considered a milestone, she didn't think that this merited such excitement. Maybe he's just very enthusiastic about saving the environment. Shaking her head, Nagi suppressed those thoughts, as it was none of her business anyways. All she had to do was accomplish her job. Of course, Lorien had no idea about what his subordinate was thinking, nor did he care. However, if he had to explain, he'd declare that the dream trees have officially covered the whole world and are now present in every country and city. This actually took a bit longer than he had previously predicted, as there were some guys and some politically involved parties that tried to intervene at some point. Some were for the research and data that are very useful in the creation of for-profit products, and others because he affected their earnings. It's just that even before Lorien or his subordinates could deal with it, the world itself did as luck took effect, causing those guys to fall into deep trouble. And now that everything is well and done, all that is left now is just waiting for the trees to get linked and receive the immense amount of dream energy collected. However, it's a pity that this world is much stronger than the previous ones, and gaining ownership of it takes a lot more than just planting trees, at least, for the time being, that is. After all, if he were to wait for 5 or 10 more years, even if he does nothing, he'll still receive this ownership, as the moment those trees got planted, this was already set in stone. Frankly, this is something he had long expected. After all, he didn't think that getting the ownership of each world would be a simple task. Otherwise, he would just enter a very powerful world and plant trees there, and boom, like that, he'll instantly reach the transcendent level or more. This would be highly illogical, and unless there is a special case, then it would be impossible. The amount of luck given is always proportional to the benefits the world receives, and the same amount of energy won't give the same benefit to a high-level multiversal world as it does to a low-level world without mystery. If the amount of energy is a cup full of water, then the multiversal world is an ocean, while the other low-level world is a larger cup. Based on this analogy, we can clearly observe the difference and the benefits those words can receive. However, we should still note that this benefit will expand with time and tend toward infinity. It's just that this still needs time. However, thankfully, the difference here isn't as large as the previously taken example, so there is no need to worry so much about this. It's just that Lorien isn't that focused on this aspect right now. Rather, his interest was focused on the power system he is creating, as those dream trees are essential in the making of the worldwide dream realm, as they'll act as signal towers of sorts. And speaking of the power system. Chapter 141, Time Skip Point 2. Speaking of the power system, in those 7 months, thanks to the help of Yuki, Lorien was able to gather a large amount of knowledge about cursed techniques, barriers, and weird ways of energy control. She even allowed him to study her innate curse techniques so he could understand how those techniques came to be and how they exist, which Lorien somehow previously overlooked as he was too focused on the energy itself rather than the techniques. It's just that, he still didn't learn anything surprising or amazing from this research. However, he didn't think much of it, as he had long expected this result. Actually, those cursed techniques aren't that much different from the abilities created from the ability seed Lorien makes. If there are any differences to note, then it would be that those cursed techniques are inheritable by blood, more complex, based on energy rather than physical power, and there are bigger chances of conceptual abilities being born. Otherwise, there is not that much of a difference. However, Lorien still took those characteristics, analyzed them, improved some things, and then added them to the ability seed, thereby improving it. Now, abilities born from the ability seed has all the characteristics of cursed techniques, such as being inherited by blood, domain expansion possibility, and can also be powered by energy, and if not available then physical strength. Moreover, there is also the neutral/chaotic energy that he was finally able to research, which was a bit of a pain in the ass. After all, the positive and negative energies are complete opposites that cancel and attack each other upon contact, and letting them balance and boost each other was a much harder task than he had expected, not to mention that added work of keeping the characteristics of both, such as heavenly restrictions, and vows. However, after utilizing his ability to forcefully add certain characteristics such as the yin-yang, and hope, among others ones, Lorien was finally left with a neutral but chaotic energy that had a lot of potentials and is full of possibilities. It's just that life is balanced, so when gaining some things we lose others, and in this case, the gain in potential was traded for the immediate effect and powers of the previous base energies. For example, even though this energy was composed partly of positive energy, it lost the immediate effects of infinite regeneration. However, it still kept the possibility of that ability appearing. All in all, immediate power was lost, but infinite possibilities were added. However, it's a pity that even with all those gains, there is still something missing before Lorien could officially finish creating the dream path, which is knowledge about the soul and consciousness. Some may ask about the reason why Lorien even needs this, and the answer to this question is that in the planned outer dream, this knowledge is required so the soul power could be absorbed after each kill alongside the knowledge possessed by the nightmare creature, and for this, fine soul control is required. As for the rejection when this happens, Lorien is preparing some things to prevent that possibility from even appearing, so there is no need to worry about it. However, just then as he was deep in thought, a sudden vibrating noise startled him as the beautiful sound of a flute started playing. Ring! Volume! Getting woke up from his daze by the sudden ringing, Lorien instantly turned his attention toward the source. Yuki! Looking at the name that appeared on the phone screen, a weary smile appeared on Lorien's face as he couldn't help but scratch his cheek. Should I answer the call? However, just as he was contemplating his next course of action, he suddenly noticed Nagi, who was still standing there and looking at him with a weird look on her face. She probably thinks that I am crazy, right? Shaking his head, he suppressed those thoughts and coughed lightly before speaking with some majesty in his tone. All right, you've done a great job, I'll call for you when I need you. Hearing this, Nagi instantly reacted, straightening her expression and responding while giving a small bow. Thank you, I'll be at your service. Saying this, she quickly walked out of the office, leaving Lorien, who had already turned his attention toward the phone, alone. Sigh. Giving off a long sigh, Lorien finally picked up the phone and answered. Hello. Hi. It took you long enough. I was busy. Yeah, right. Hearing the obvious sarcasm coming from the other end, Lorien couldn't help but roll his eyes. However, he couldn't refute what she said. After all, she really wasn't in the wrong. Ever since she joined him, she's been the one doing most of the work, as Lorien just sat there enjoying himself. Frankly, even as a qualified capitalist, Lorien felt a bit ashamed. From gathering techniques, and dealing with the issue of those higher UPS, to looking for information, as long as it was something that is helpful to achieving the goal described by him, she'll work hard for it. Hell, even now she's looking for traces of the cursed spirit with the soul manipulation technique. As for why Lorien doesn't do it himself and be done with it, well, the answer would be laziness. Moreover, if he were to do everything himself, why even bother getting subordinates? It's just that by subordinates here Lorien is only referring to his teammate Yuki, as she was dealing with this aspect on her own. If those guys from Jujutsu High were to find out that the special grade sorcerer renowned for her laziness and unwillingness to do tasks was working so hard, it is unknown what their reaction will be. However, Lorien bets that it would be very funny. However, just as Lorien was internally laughing, a scream from the phone suddenly woke him up. Hello? Ah, yes, sorry. You really should fix this daydreaming tendency of yours. Can't help it, it's innate. Okay, did you find him? No, I am still looking for him. However, I still can't find any traces. It's okay, take your time. Don't worry, I feel like I'll find him soon. however, that wasn't why I called. What is it then? You remember the thing you asked to keep a watch off? Did you get any news? Yet. Another guy is going to be secretly executed by those guys. Hearing this, Lorien's eyes flicked as he couldn't help but think of something which caused the corners of his mouth to raise slightly. I'd like to know more about it. I'll have to disappoint a bit on this one as even I don't know much about it. Is the information hidden? It's just weird, all I could find was that he is 16 years old and that he caused injuries to his classmates, and oh, he also seems to be cursed. Hearing this, Lorien instantly knew that this was exactly the guy he was looking for, so he immediately responded. Alright then. This is what I was looking for, thank you for your hard work. Why don't you do some work yourself if you want to? However, before she could finish her phrase, Lorien instantly hung up the phone. Hard work? Now? I am on a vacation. Shaking his head, a smile appeared on Lorien's face as he couldn't help but imagine the angry look on Yuki's face. Ha ha ha, she's probably very angry now. Well, I'll talk to her later, however, the important thing now is Yuta, it seems that the time is finally there, now, I can have some fun. Chapter 142, Elementary School. At noon, a couple of days later. A young man of average height, messy black hair, and dark blue eyes could be seen walking with two people and a panda. This is his first day here at this sorcerer's school called Jujutsu High, and they were just divided into two pairs for a jujutsu practice where they are going to fight some curses. Looking somewhat nervous, Yuta tried to talk to the group he was in as he stuttered trying to start a conversation, however, this only backfired as the green-haired girl wearing eyeglasses lashed out at him seeing his timid actions and manners. You were bullied, weren't you? Bullseye, hey? I totally get it, even I'd bully you. It's written on your face that you are branding yourself as a good person, it's sickening. Why are you acting like the victim when you are being protected? You've been passive your whole life, haven't you? Jujutsu High isn't so easy that you can get by without any goal. However, this didn't go any further as the half-masked guy and the panda finally stopped her seeing that the new guy wasn't looking too well. Maki. That's enough. Bonito flakes. Thankfully, this interference by her friends successfully stopped the conflict as Maki walked away while saying, "Okay, fine, get off my case." Seeing this, Panda couldn't help but look at Yuta a bit apologetically and said, "Sorry about that, she has a habit of acting like she understands others." No. She's right. Following this small episode, everyone stayed relatively quiet as each pair was then finally sent to his destination, and for Yuta and Maki, that would be an elementary school where a group of children has gone missing. However, before starting their task, Maki and their mentor Gojo had to explain to the newbie the basics, after all, he knew nothing about this hidden part of the world. You're saying the kids were kidnapped by a curse? Asked Yuta. Yup, two so far. Responded Gojo as he paused for a moment before continuing. We're here to exorcise the curse and save the children, and if they're dead, retrieve them. Hearing this, Yuta couldn't help but get startled. Hey? Dead. However, Gojo didn't answer him as he raised two fingers in front of him as a seal and started setting up a barrier. Emerge from darkness, blacker than darkness. Purify that which is impure. Watching this, Yuta got shocked again as the sky suddenly turned dark and the barrier surrounded the place. It's turning into night. It's a veil, a barrier that will smoke out the curse and keep you all from being seen from those outside. It's easy to undo from inside, responded Gojo as he walked away. However, just as the barrier was about to completely separate them, he still left of an ominous warning. Now, do be careful, not to die. Hearing this, Yuta couldn't help but call out to him. Die? Sensei. It's just that before he could fully understand the situation, Maki spoke. Transfer student, don't get distracted. Saying this, she rushed toward the curses that suddenly appeared, instantly cutting them using her weapon with one blow. Following this, she turned toward Yuta who was looking amazed, and said. Come on, let's move it. Hey? Where to? Inside, obviously. Saying this, she then rushed inside as Yuta followed her closely and hugged his loose white uniform, and asked. Zenin-san, aren't you scared? Don't use my last name. Sorry, but it really seems like ghosts would be here, though, we've already seen some. However, Maki didn't care about his whining as she just calmly observed the situation. There aren't many curses here, even though the veil's been drawn. No, they are here, just not attacking. Thinking of this, she turned her eyes toward Yuta, who was still acting scared. Is it because he's here? However, just as she was thinking hard, Yuta suddenly screamed in fright, completely pissing her off. Something just moved. Hey! Yes! Instantly paused Yuta and responded. What grade are you? Hey? In English proficiency. Jujutsu sorcerers are ranked in grades from 4 to 1. But I only just came to Jujutsu High, I don't think I have that. Face palming, Maki finally couldn't hold it as she expanded her hand and said in frustration. Forget it. Show me your student ID, you got one from that dumb blindfolded guy, right? Dumb blindfolded guy? Yes, here you go. Snatching the card with some force, Maki looked at it while saying. Well, if you joined with no prior history, you're probably grade 4. However, the moment she read it, her eyes shrank in fright. Name, Okatsu Yuta. Tokyo Jujutsu High School Student ID, Special. Specia grade. Special grade is above even grade 1, isn't it? This sounds like it has to be a joke. Completely perplexed as to what was happening, Maki didn't know what to think. However, unbeknown to both her and Yuta, there was also another pair of eyes that was currently looking at the ID card in her hand. As standing more than a kilometer away from their location, a silver-haired and golden-eyed young man could be seen looking in their direction, his eyes completely ignoring the distance as he observed them. Looking at this pair, Lorien couldn't help but scratch his shin as he fell deep in thought. Yuta and Maki, one of my favorite characters in the original, I frankly don't mind helping them. However, this is not the point now. I am really curious as to why Yuta got the special grade rating, considering that only those who can use domains are supposed to receive it. However, not to mention that, currently he can't even control his power. I've had this question in mind for a long time, it's just that there was no way to answer it. Moreover, I also wanted to check if anything would change. However, it seems that this is not the case. Tisk, this is really confusing, but whatever, let's call it an exception. Shaking his head, Lorien turned his attention toward Maki. She has great potential. In the original, she even became like Toji after discarding cursed energy. I really wonder how she'd do if I gave her the Dream Path Seed. Thinking of this, Lorien's eyes couldn't help but shine, as this was a good candidate for a first path taker. However, after thinking about it for a moment, he threw those thoughts aside as he haven't finished completely creating the path yet. Let's leave for later. Now, I am more interested in. Reaching here, Lorien's eyes left those two as he looked at the silver-haired man standing outside the barrier. Satoru Gojo. Chapter 143, Nice to meet you. Simultaneously, just when Lorien was observing the unfolding situation from a considerable distance, enough time has passed for a mutation to occur with Maki and Yuta. Currently, it seemed that the duo was no longer inside the elementary school. Instead, they found themselves trapped within the stomach of an enormous cursed spirit that materialized during the brief window of time when Lorien was lost in contemplation. Once it appeared, this immense cursed spirit, roughly a quarter the size of the entire school, swiftly launched a surprise attack, flinging the pair into the air and promptly gulping them down. Incapable of reacting or creating a counterattack while being in midair, they ended up in their present, dire predicament. Shit! Shit! Stomping her feet in sheer frustration, Maki couldn't help but feel exasperated as she realized her weapon had been left outside. Let us out, damn it! Screaming in anger, her furious shout filled with unrestrained anger was potent enough to rouse Yuta from the disorientation caused by their unexpected fall. Where are we? We're in that curse's stomach. You shouldn't be passing out over this. You mean it ate us? That's right. I thought you were being protected by your curse. Even I don't know what makes Rika-chan come out. And more importantly, what do we do now? After time passes and the veil goes away, help will come for us. As she uttered these words, Maki couldn't help but feel even more vexed while envisioning Gojo's face upon rescuing them. This is embarrassing. Shit. However, just as she was expressing her frustration, the voice of a child sounded in front of her, instantly attracting the attention of the two. Please. He's about to die. Cried the older child, who was still awake as he cradled a younger, visibly weaker child in his lap. Seeing this, Yuta couldn't help but feel a surge of relief as he recalled his instructor previously mentioning the disappearance of two children. It's just that unfortunately, his elation was short-lived as Maki quickly doused it after assessing the children's condition. This is not good, look closer, the big one's obviously been affected by the curse, both of them could die at any moment. Alarmed by her words, Yuta instantly leaped to his feet, demanding to know their next course of action. What do we do? However, in her mounting frustration, Maki snapped back. There's nothing we can do. Saying this, one could hear her voice faltering as her expression turned despondent. We can only wait for help. Not everyone has resistance to curses like you do. It's just that by the time she finished speaking, her body swayed precariously from side to side as she struggled to keep herself standing. However, that was to no avail as moments later she succumbed and collapsed onto the ground, unconscious. Zen-in-san. Alarmed, Yuta instantly hurried to her side to assess her condition, and it didn't take more than a couple of glances for him to notice the wound that appeared on her thigh. What's with this wound? Are you cursed? However, just as Yuta was wrestling with his confusion and anxiety, the older child who had called out earlier spoke up once more. Is she going to die? Please, save us, mister. Reaching here, the kid was finally overwhelmed with emotion, as he finally broke down in tears, sobbing loudly. Please. Witnessing this, Yuta clutched his own clothing, his expression fraught with unease as he replied. You keep asking, but I can't. However, before he could complete his sentence, Maki, who had been lying on the ground, abruptly sprang up and seized Yuta by his clothing, hoisting him into the air while shouting at him. Seriously, why did you come to Jujutsu High? What do you want to do? What do you want to have? What do you want to achieve? Hearing those questions, Yuta's eyes couldn't help but mist as he responded. I don't want anyone to get hurt anymore. I tried to lock myself away and disappear, but I was told it's lonely being all by myself, and I couldn't argue. Reaching this point, Yuta gritted his teeth and spoke with resolve. I want to interact with someone. I want to be needed by someone. I want the confidence to say that it's okay that I'm alive. Hearing this, Maki's voice softened as she spoke. Then exorcise them, exorcise curses, exorcise them over and over, confidence and friends will all come to you after that, that's the kind of place Jujutsu High is. However, that was all she could say before passing out again, unable to hold herself up any longer. It's just that this was enough to solidify Yuta's resolve as he took the ring he had been wearing as a necklace and wore it. Rika-chan. What? Lend me your strength. The instant these words were spoken, the curse Rika erupted from the mouth of the cursed spirit that had swallowed Yuta and Maki as she then tore its head off with a single strike and proceeded to assault its body relentlessly, causing blood to splatter everywhere. Meanwhile, standing outside the barrier, Gojo immediately sensed the sudden surge of cursed energy as he observed the immense power being unleashed. Now that's terrifying. Unable to hold back, a smirk appeared on Gojo's face as he mused. So this is the full picture of Oromoto Rika, the special grade cursed apparition. Ha 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 ha, so scary. However, just as Gojo was chuckling lightly, a voice suddenly sounded beside him. Quite the interesting sight, isn't it? It's just that before Gojo could fully react, something more outrageous than someone appearing silently next to him without him noticing occurred. As upon hearing the voice, Gojo felt someone tapping on his shoulder, completely ignoring the passive infinity technique around him. However, your technique is a bit more interesting. Chapter 144, Satoru Gojo. Feeling the unexpected touch on his shoulder, Gojo swiftly leaped away to put some distance between him and the uninvited guest. However, despite doing so, he still kept his head directed toward the source of the noise, but since his eyes were still covered, he couldn't see anything. Someone like Toji. With that thought in mind, Gojo promptly removed the bandages covering his eyes, enabling him to perceive the world normally. And the moment he did this, he noticed a silver-haired, golden-eyed young man standing where he had been moments before. The stranger leaned casually against the black car, his hand still extended in the air, a funny expression on his face. Looking at this man, Gojo couldn't help but think back at what had just happened. How did he do that? Infinity is still fully functional, and even when he touched me it didn't even react. It is as if he simply ignored it. No. It's the opposite. He is not the one who ignored infinity, it is infinity that ignored his presence. Moreover, I can't feel his presence at all, this is even more extreme than Toji. Thinking of this, a seldom-seen serious expression emerged on Gojo's face as he maintained eye contact with the stranger. Lorien. Who are you? Hearing this, Lorien awkwardly retracted his hand and laughed, shaking his head. Well, hello there. No need to be on edge. My name is Lorien. It's a pleasure to meet you. Observing Lorien's laid-back and amicable demeanor, and considering that he didn't attack him just now even though he bypassed infinity, Gojo gradually eased his stance. Then, raising his right hand to his chin and tilting his head, he started examining Lorien with curiosity. You're quite intriguing. Seeing this reaction, Lorien felt at a loss for words. After all, who would react so casually to someone sneaking up on them? However, this wasn't something too unexpected as he was aware that the man before him was very unpredictable, to say the least. Thank you, I suppose. With a light chuckle, Gojo continued to observe Lorien, his voice brimming with curiosity. I can't detect any cursed energy on you, how did you do that just now? Hearing this question, Lorien scratched his head in response, confessing that he himself hadn't anticipated the result. It's just that before explaining the method Lorien used to bypass infinity, it's important to understand what infinity even is. Infinity or mugen is the base state of the limitless and essentially represents the power to halt or stop. The limitless technique functions similarly to convergent and divergent sequences in mathematics, with infinity being the convergence of an immeasurable series, causing anything that approaches it to slow down and never reach the user. This occurs because the technique divides the finite space between the two subjects an infinite number of times. In mathematics, dividing a number countless times will never reduce it to zero, instead, it results in fractional units so small that they become immeasurable, and it is this concept that the limitless technique brings into reality. Thus, anything attempting to penetrate this infinitely divided space will slow down to the point of appearing to stop entirely. This technique is usually active 24/7 but can be deactivated by the user at will. Moreover, it is also fully automatic, as it detects threats and counteracts them based on their mass, speed, strength, and level of cursed energy without the user needing to do anything. It's just that even though this technique may appear invincible, it is actually very far from the truth, as even the strongest of abilities have certain weaknesses and flaws. And for infinity, those limitations are represented in the fact that as strong as it is, this ability is still essentially a cursed technique, which means that it can be countered by domain expansion, domain amplification, and cursed tools, abilities, and techniques that specialize in disrupting or dispelling cursed techniques. And such examples include Miguel's whip, the inverted spear of heaven, Angel's cursed technique nullification, and many others. So, as potent as this ability is, it is still very far from being invincible, as what truly makes it formidable is the user himself. It's just that, numerous as the examples given above are, the method Lorien used to bypass this technique wasn't one of those previously mentioned. Instead, it was something much simpler. And this method was simply making himself undetectable. Yes, undetectable. You see, as previously stated, Gojo's infinity is fully automatic, as it detects threats and counteracts them based on certain parameters and variables without the user having to do anything. However, the simple fact that most people overlook is that to do this, one must first detect the threat, otherwise, there would be nothing to block. So when he thought of this, Lorien decided to give it a try, as he used his ability to give his touch an attribute which is undetectable by infinity, and it worked surprisingly well. Reflecting on it, Lorien still felt somewhat speechless. After all, when he first thought about bypassing this ability, the initial idea that came to mind was an attack that reverse cause and effect, and the next idea was simply disrupting the cursed technique. It's just that when he was about to do that, the notion of making himself undetectable suddenly occurred to him, and he tried it, not expecting it to work so effectively. Is this what they call thinking out of the box? Shaking his head, Lorien threw those thoughts aside as he noticed Gojo giving him a weird look. Cough. Sorry about that, I have the habit of daydreaming a bit. It's all right, so. Yes, I simply made it not detect me, you should really work on that. Hearing this, Gojo nodded slightly in response, as this was in line with what he had previously guessed. Undetectable, hey? Interesting, very interesting. Ha 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 ha. Laughing out loud, as he hadn't encountered anything so intriguing for a long time, Gojo spoke again. You don't seem to be here to fight, so, what brings you here? Chapter 145, Collecting Abilities. What brings me here? Upon hearing the question, Lorien's eyes flickered as he glanced at Gojo before turning his attention toward the barrier. Noticing this, the strongest sorcerer immediately regained his serious demeanor, focusing all his attention on Lorien. Are you here for the kids? Gojo asked, his tone full of protectiveness. Seeing this sudden shift in attitude, Lorien realized that he was misunderstood. However, Gojo's guess wasn't completely off the mark. The truth was, the main reason he came here has already been achieved the moment he appeared, as ever since he watched the anime, Lorien wanted to meet Gojo face to face. However, that is just him fulfilling an otaku dream of his and nothing more, as he won't be changing his attitude or acting subservient because of this. This is the so-called I wanted to do it, so I did. And if we are being honest, Lorien simply wanted to show his presence here, so that in the future, when he was ready to present his achievement, nobody would be left wondering who he was. Just imagining the possibility of getting on stage to finally present his dream path, only to be met with the question, "Who are you?" from one of the audience members was enough to make Lorien feel embarrassed. Actually, for Lorien, one of the biggest impacts of anime was the impressions it gave him of the characters. For example, he had a good impression of most of the main cast in the Jujutsu Kaisen world, except for Sukuna and some others whom he viewed unfavorably. It's just that things end here, as it won't affect him more than that. However, apart from his otaku dream, Lorien also came to observe the abilities of others. As for the potential dream path taker, that idea only came to mind after seeing Maki. You see, Lorien had become very interested in analyzing curse techniques and copying them ever since meeting Leela in Tunisia. After all, by analyzing the cursed techniques, Lorien could learn how they function and their essence, which in turn made using them with his own reality warping and dream realization ability much less energy intensive. For instance, with Leela, Lorien got the idea of using illusion and falsifying truth in combat. And after analyzing Yuki's ability, he learned to apply virtual mass to his attacks, making them a lot more potent. And now, Lorien came here to see if he could observe and analyze Yuta's copy technique, as it'll be very complementary to Lorien's own ability, as after getting it, Lorien could simply copy the abilities and then analyze them slowly when his time. Not to mention that there is also Gojo, who has the ability Limitless, which brings the concept of infinity into reality, allowing the user to manipulate and distort space at will. It would be weird if Lorien isn't interested in them at all. Thinking of this, Lorien couldn't help but get the idea of fighting Gojo here to analyze his ability. However, turning his head around and noticing the stream of people going back and forth, he quickly dismissed this idea. After all, he didn't want to involve normal people in his pursuits for his own selfish purposes. Looking at the people around him, Lorien knew all too well that each of them had their own life, family, hopes, fears, and dreams, and they were not just cold numbers or NPCs from behind the screen. While Lorien may not actively help people, he also won't consciously harm them either, at least he tries, as he prefers to maintain a neutral position. It's just that if push comes to shove, Lorien won't back down, nor will he sacrifice himself as some people do. While he admires those who are willing to selflessly sacrifice themselves, he sadly admits that he is somewhat of a selfish and self-centered person and won't do such a thing. In the past, Lorien may not have considered these things, and he may have had a darker view of life, but recently he has had time to reflect on his past actions and decisions. This period of reflection has allowed him to reconsider his priorities and approach to life, as he knew that with his power, he could affect the lives of billions of people. Sigh. After all, I was once one of those passerbys. Shaking his head, Lorien's mind began to wander towards the idea of kidnapping Gojo and the other kids in order to analyze their techniques at his own pace, as the thought of slowly deconstructing their abilities and learning from them filled him with excitement. But as quickly as the idea had appeared, Lorien knew it was not a viable option, as the chaos and mayhem that would ensue if Gojo were to disappear would be catastrophic. Tisk, did I come here for nothing then? I should have thought about this earlier. Feeling a bit frustrated, a deep frown appeared on Lorien's face. He had come here with a clear purpose, but things were not going according to plan. Ugh, if it was a real life and death battle, I am confident in taking him down in one strike. It's just that to analyze his ability, I'd have to fight him for some period of time. After all, the combination of reversing cause and effect and obliteration isn't something he could counter, and fighting him for a long time will cause a lot of damage to the surroundings. Shaking his head, Lorien let out a heavy sigh and decided to give up for now. As he knew that he had to accept the situation for what it was, so, relaxing his body and leaning back on the car, he responded. I am indeed very interested in those two kids, however, you don't have to worry about it, as I mean them no harm. However, Lorien's calm response seemed to have the opposite effect on Gojo, as the atmosphere around them suddenly became even more intense. The tension between them was palpable, and it felt like a battle was about to erupt at any moment. Right now, Gojo's protective instincts were on high alert, and he wasn't sure if he could trust Lorien's words. Moreover, the man in front of him looked very dangerous. at least it was not something those kids could handle on their own. It seems that I have to. It's just that as the tension between Lorien and Gojo reached its breaking point, the barrier next to them suddenly faded as Yuta appeared carrying Maki and the two missing children. However, it was clear that Yuta was very exhausted as moments after leaving the barrier, he collapsed to the ground unconscious. Seeing this, Lorien shook his and spoke, causing the tension to dissipate, and putting a halt to the potential battle. As much as I'd like to fight you, this is not the time or place to do it. Moreover, it appears that the kid hasn't realized what his ability even is at the moment. Saying this, Lorien smiled lightly and pointed his hand toward them, and spoke. Heal. And as a consequence, the injuries and damage that they had sustained were gone, as if they had never been there in the first place. Even the cursed energy that had been affecting the children was swept away by some unknown force. Doing so, Lorien turned his head toward Gojo and said as his body began to fade away. We'll meet again. Watching all of this transpire, a sense of confusion couldn't help but wash over Gojo. Did he just come here to show off? What a strange guy. We'll meet again, hey. Chapter 146, Let's Fight. And so, like that, more than a month passed. Today, Yuta and Maki could be seen standing under the sun on the lush green grass which acted as a natural arena for their sparring. Yuta held his training sword while Maki held a wooden staff as they faced each other in silence, not breaking eye contact. It's just that this peaceful atmosphere was short-lived as Yuta launched his offense trying to land a hit on Maki, who quickly defended with ease and started counter-attacking. It was evident that Yuta had improved significantly since he started his training, as he now knew how to use his weapon in combat, a far cry from his earlier struggles. And so, with Yuta also defending and counter-attacking whenever he found the chance, the duo quickly entered high-speed combat as their bodies moved with fluid grace, each showcasing their skills. And from a distance, while the two were going at it, Panda and Tej could be seen sitting on the stairs watching them. Ah! Tuna! However, just then, Gojo's voice suddenly appeared from the distance, interrupting the battle for a moment. Hey, everyone! How's it going? Hearing this, Yuta immediately lowered his guard and turned his head to respond. However, this only caused him to get attacked by Maki in the face using the staff as she admonished him for his action. Don't get distracted. Hearing this, Yuta touched his face and responded. Right. Take your stance already, idiot. Right. You're going to land a blow on me, aren't you? Hearing this, it seems that Yuta was finally motivated, as he really wanted to land even a hit on her after all the training he had to go through. Yes. And so, the battle instantly resumed in a much more intense manner, with Yuta giving it his all. However, it appears that this backfired as Maki was quickly able to take him down, as she then landed a hit on his head again using the staff. There, you're dead, I win again. Was that last hit necessary? Don't be soft, you should always treat it like it's a real battle. The pain, or lack thereof, makes a huge difference in how fast you grow. Listening to this, Yuta took up his sword and stood up again while speaking to Maki. One more, please. Seeing this, Panda, who was still watching them from the stairs, couldn't help but comment. His movements have gotten a lot better. Salmon. Hearing this, Gojo nodded as he couldn't help but add. His personality is more positive now, too. Salmon Row. However, just then a sudden unfamiliar voice sounded from behind them, also commenting on the situation. Well, their martial arts are only so-so. Well, for their age. Instinctively responded Gojo, just to stop mid-sentence as he realized that something was wrong. This was also noticed by Panda and Tej, who instantly jumped forward from their position to create some distance, which in turn caused Yuta and Maki to immediately stop their battle as they also noticed the intruder. However, when the group saw Gojo still standing there unfazed, they couldn't help but relax as they then questioned Lorien. Who are you? Hearing this, Lorien just smiled at them before turning his head towards Gojo, who had already removed the bandages on his eyes so he could see Lorien. Nice to meet you again. So, it's you. Expecting someone else. However, just then, the sound of a phone ringing disrupted the atmosphere, which caused Lorien to frown. It's just that after realizing that it was his own phone and seeing who the caller was, a helpless look couldn't help but appear on his face. Ring. 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 Ugh, why is she calling now? Shaking his head, Lorien didn't bother thinking about it, as he would know after responding, so after giving everyone present an apologetical smile, he said as he pressed the green button. Sorry, I have to take this. Seeing this, the group of students instantly felt pissed off as they felt a strong urge to attack. However, they were then stopped by Gojo, who kept looking at Lorien with keen interest. It's just that Lorien didn't care about any of this right now, as none of their attacks would land anyways, as he had the dream mode activated. "Hey Yuki! How are you doing?" "Well, I am fine, are you busy now?" Hearing this question, Lorien turned his head toward Gojo before responding. "I am currently at Jujutsu High." "Hey? Why did you go there?" "Felt bored and I wanted to meet some interesting guys." "Tisk, don't get killed." "Worried about me?" "I am just worried that we won't be able to finish the plan." And here I was feeling touched. Getting no answer for a while, Lorien finally couldn't help but ask. "So, why did you call me?" "I found something interesting that I wanted to share with you, however, it seems that this isn't the time for that." "Indeed. Well, I'll call you later then. See ya." Beep. 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 Hanging the phone, Lorien turned his attention again toward Gojo, who was currently looking at him with narrowed eyes. "Sorry about that, where were we again?" However, Gojo ignored this question as he asked one of his own. "Was that the special great sorcerer Yuki you were talking to right now?" Hearing this, a cunning light shone in Lorien's eyes as he knew that his plan had worked. After all, when Yuki called, he could have ignored the call or simply shielded the voice using his power. However, he didn't do so as he wanted to bait Gojo. Maybe yes, maybe no. Seeing Lorien's playful attitude, Gojo wasn't that amused by it as he continued asking. "What plan were you talking about?" Don't look so serious," responded Lorien as he started scratching his shin, looking as if he was thinking hard. However, this brief moment of contemplation was quickly replaced by a burst of excitement as his eyes lit up and a physical light bulb materialized above his head, which emitted a cartoonish glow as if straight out of a comic strip. "I've got an idea." However, seeing this, Gojo couldn't help but frown a bit, his face turning even more serious. Did he just manifest that? I felt no cursed energy. It's just that Lorien didn't care about the reaction of the people present here, as he said while pointing his finger at Gojo. "How about this, let's battle right now. If you can win against me, I'll tell you everything you want to know." Chapter 147, Gojo vs Lorien. Everything I want to know. Hearing this, Gojo paused for a moment, his mind working rapidly to process Lorien's request. And thanks to the mental prowess given by his 6 eyes, it only took him a moment or so to understand the true intent behind Lorien's words, which caused him to burst out laughing. "Ha ha ha, so that's how it is. I understand now, you've done it on purpose, haven't you? You just want to goad me into a fight." Gojo spoke with a hint of amusement in his voice. Hearing this, Lorien grinned mischievously, not feeling embarrassed for being seen through. "You catch on quickly, don't you? I wouldn't be where I am if I didn't." Gojo chuckled in response before continuing. "It's just that I didn't expect you to be after me all along. I thought that your previous talk was just some sort of ploy. I didn't anticipate you to be for real. Talk about having no sense of danger. I wouldn't be so sure about that." "Is that so? Let's leave it at that for now. Moreover, I wouldn't say that I am only after you." Lorien smirked as he turned his head toward Yuta and waved at him. Seeing this, Gojo's eyes narrowed as he watched this interaction. After the kid or the curse? Why would I care about a curse? I am only interested in the kid's curse technique. I just want to study it. Yuta's curse technique. Hearing this, Gojo wasn't the only one feeling puzzled, as everyone instinctively turned their heads toward Yuta, questioning him. However, he himself didn't know what was happening. As far as he could tell, he was just someone cursed and nothing more. "Do I have a cursed technique?" Seeing this, Gojo couldn't help but let his curiosity the better of him as he inquired again. "Ah, so you know what his cursed technique is?" It's just that Lorien didn't want to answer, as he just smiled and responded lightly. "Want to get more information? Just beat me, it is as simple as that." "You are very persistent, aren't you?" "Guilty as charged," responded Lorien while raising both hands and sticking out his tongue as a joke. However, seeing that no one was looking amused, he coughed lightly and changed the subject. "Cough. So, where are we going to fight?" "Sigh, let's head to the nearby forest." Getting what he wanted, Lorien nodded his head in response as he spoke, his body slowly fading away. "Good. I'll be waiting for you there, don't be late." Seeing this, Gojo didn't try to stop him, rather, he just waited for him to leave before turning his head towards the students who were looking in amazement at the position where Lorien disappeared. Where did he go? Salmon. Hey sensei, who is he? Hearing those inquiries, Gojo didn't bother answering them and stated. I'll go fight him, you guys go report this to the principal and tell him not to send anyone to the forest as there may be a bit noisy there soon. Hearing this, Yuta understood what Gojo was about to do, which caused him to feel a bit worried. Sensei, are you really going to fight him? Yes, that guy is dangerous. I don't know much about his combat power, however, his stealth is the most powerful I've seen. Is it for the information? Hearing this question coming from Yuta, Gojo burst out laughing and responded. Ha ha ha, no it's not, that is actually just secondary. Hey! Seeing the puzzled look on everyone's faces, Gojo facepalmed, effectively angering the group who was waiting for his explanation. You see, we haven't made a binding vow, so it is unknown if the information he's giving is correct or not. Then why fight him? It's as I've stated, he's very dangerous. I don't mind if he comes after me, however, if he decides to attack you guys, he'll be very hard to defend against. Saying this, Gojo's eyes narrowed as his face turned serious. So I just want to determine his origin and purpose. If he is an enemy then we'll just get rid of him. But... Alright, I should go now. Waving his hand, Gojo refused to talk any further as he started walking toward the forest, only leaving one phrase hanging in the air. However, don't worry, because I am the strongest. Seeing this, Maki felt speechless as she didn't expect him to leave such lines before leaving. It's just that she quickly suppressed this mood and spoke. Let's move quickly, we need to report this. Tuna. Let's go. Meanwhile, just as this group was moving towards the main building to report, Gojo was walking towards the center of the forest as he followed the cartoonish arrows that suddenly appeared in front of him. I still can't tell how they are made. Interesting, very interesting. Seeing this and recalling all his previous interactions with Lorien, Gojo finally understood that this battle may be very different from all the ones he previously had. However, this didn't cause him to feel afraid or waver, instead, it only caused his excitement to skyrocket. Ha 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 ha, it's been a long time since I've had fun fighting. I hope that this battle won't be that boring. Step. 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 Following the arrows for a couple of minutes, Gojo finally reached his destination as he soon saw Lorien sitting cross-legged in the air waiting for him. Took you some time. I just gave you time to prepare a trap if you wanted to. A trap? Well, I don't need those. I've noticed. Indeed, walking here, Gojo actually half expected Lorien to prepare a trap for him, however, it seems that his guess was wrong this time, as it seems that there is no such thing here. So he wants to fight me head-on. Ha 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 ha. Smiling happily, Gojo's excitement finally increased one more notch as he stated. So, let's begin. Alright. Boom. Boom. Chapter 148, Hand-to-Hand Combat. In an instant, both Lorien and Gojo vanished from their positions just to re-emerge fractions of a second later in a whirlwind of motion as their fierce close-quarters combat commenced. Clash! Clash! With each blow, the air itself seemed to tremble as if protesting against the sheer force exerted by their collisions. With every powerful impact, miniature shockwaves could be seen rippling outwards, causing the very ground beneath their feet to tremble in response and causing dust and small rocks to be launched away. Throughout this confrontation, neither combatant utilized their abilities, save for Gojo maintaining his infinity technique. However, this wasn't that useful against Lorien, who was utilizing his ability to partially disrupt this technique. Doing so, he ensured that his strikes would not be rendered ineffective because of infinity, while also keeping the ability's defense useful enough so that Gojo doesn't decide to disable it. And unsurprisingly, the reason he's doing this is actually to study the inner workings of Gojo's power, as partially disrupting it allows him to better observe how this ability functions while also monitoring how it tries to stabilize itself and partition space. Usually, if Lorien wanted to analyze something like this, it would take him a relatively long time. However, with his divine sense that has now reached a 1,515 meters radius thanks to the improvement in the last period of time, and thanks to him using his power to accelerate the process, Lorien estimates that it would take him about 15 minutes to unravel the secrets of Gojo's ability. You see, the great thing about divine sense is that it allows him to analyze and scan things in a comprehensive manner from all angles and allows him to detect things he wouldn't have been able to notice before. And as everyone knows, More information and data equals a more accurate analysis. However, while Lorien is using his divine sense to scan Gojo's ability, let's not forget that this isn't its only use. Because if we take a closer look at the raging battle, we'll quickly spot how it's giving Lorien a great edge. It, combined with Lorien's clairvoyance and his martial arts that were far above Gojo's, made the outcome of this battle predictable. And as the fight heated up, this became more and more obvious as Lorien was quickly seizing control of the battle rhythm. Boom! Clash! With each passing moment, Lorien's advantage over his opponent grew more noticeable as Gojo failed to land a significant hit on his elusive adversary. Noticing this, Gojo strained his body to the limit and pushed his skills even further as he launched a relentless barrage of attacks. However, this wasn't that useful as Lorien displayed exceptional defense, taking advantage of what he learned until now to the extreme. He kept narrowly evading Gojo's attacks using the least movement possible in the process to conserve his energy. As for the attacks he couldn't evade, he brilliantly neutralized them by redirecting the force of the attacks, which rendered them utterly ineffective. However, Lorien didn't keep on the defensive for long as he soon began his counterattack. Swish! Clash! Punch after punch, Gojo soon found himself increasingly backed into a corner as Lorien's attacks kept raining down. These strikes were masterful to say the least as Lorien exerted every ounce of his power effectively, maximizing the impact of each attack while maintaining his composure and physical strength as he wasted no energy. Boom! Clash! Feeling increasingly frustrated with each passing moment, Gojo now realized that he was outclassed in this competition. How is this guy doing it? It's like he can see my attacks before I even think about them. Moreover, his physical strength is incredible, even after enhancing my body with cursed energy, he still has the upper hand. On top of that, he's disrupting my infinity, it seems that I can't rely on it in the next battle. Tisk, hand-to-hand combat isn't going to cut it against him, defeating him this way seems nearly impossible. Realizing this, Gojo immediately gave up on this losing battle as he jumped back, distancing himself from Lorien. Let the battle truly begin. Seeing this, Lorien couldn't help but feel at a loss. After all, he was truly enjoying the battle right now. Ever since he reached this level, this is the first time someone fights him without him having to limit himself. However, this is to be expected. After all, even though Gojo hasn't reached Lorien's level in martial arts, his years of combat experience and 6 eyes allowed him to fight Lorien for so long. It's just that even with this, he still couldn't handle the cheating combination that Lorien has. A pity, I was really enjoying this. Sigh. It's just that Gojo didn't know or care about what Lorien was thinking right now as he activated his reverse curse technique red, causing a small red orb to manifest which instantly unleashed an immense explosive force in Lorien's direction. Seeing this, Lorien knew that this wasn't the time to daydream as the battle wasn't over yet. Well, it's all out now I guess, just not too over the top, I also want to have fun. Not hesitating any longer, Lorien touched his ring, turning it back into its weapon form as he then slashed it forward toward the incoming attack. Swish! As a consequence, a sword slash made of multicolored energy was unleashed from the blade. Zing-ug! Piercing through the air, this sharp energy carved the earth below it as it rushed towards Gojo's attack, interrupting it. Boom! The moment the red orb and the multicolored sword slash collided, the air was filled with a cacophony of sound, akin to 1,000 thunderclaps. The very fabric of space seemed to tremble and crack under the strain of their clashing energies as an awe-inspiring explosion erupted from the point of impact. Crack! Crack! Chapter 149, Halo Purple. In the aftermath of the colossal explosion, a dense cloud of dust, debris, and smoke billowed into the sky, casting a temporary veil over the battlefield as shockwaves rippled outward from the epicenter, shaking the earth. What was that? Looking at the direction of the deafening noise, the sorcerers present at Jujutsu High were instantly drawn, their eyes widening as they felt the awe-inspiring spectacle of raw power unfolding in the distance. And meanwhile, the group of students had already reached Principal Masamichi Yaga, swiftly informing him of the situation. Damn it! It seems that this intruder isn't that simple. Grumbled Yaga, his eyes scanning the area before landing on a nearby individual clad in a suit. Gather all sorcerers on campus. Semi-first grade and above, in the circle out front. Seeing this, despite the palpable tension in the air, Panda felt the need to remind the principal of Gojo's explicit instructions. Principal, Gojo said not to send anyone to help him. I'm well aware of that. But we need to be ready for anything. Yaga responded, his voice tinged with both frustration and unease. The principal understood Gojo better than anyone else. He knew that the formidable sorcerer was at his most powerful when left to fight alone. Yet, Yaga couldn't shake the nagging feeling that they needed to assemble everyone as a precautionary measure. I have a bad feeling about this. Boom! The ground shuddered beneath their feet once more, sending a ripple of unease through the onlookers. They gazed in the direction of the tumult, their expressions fraught with anxiety. However, Yuta, who felt a personal connection to the unfolding events due to his prior interaction with Lorien, was particularly troubled. Gripping the ring that hung around his neck like a talisman, Yuta couldn't help but whisper, "I hope Sensei will be all right." Zing! Boom! As both combatants stopped holding back, the battle immediately escalated, with Gojo launching a barrage of long-range attacks in the form of red, as if venting his earlier frustration. However, it seemed that his efforts were in vain, as Lorien skillfully slashed and interrupted each incoming strike, one after another. Seeing the lack of progress in their battle, Gojo couldn't help but frown as he realized that they weren't getting anywhere like this. Moreover, he felt as though his opponent wasn't even trying his best. Was I underestimated? Ha ha ha, interesting. With a wicked grin spreading across Gojo's face, he teleported a short distance away in an instant and extended one hand in front of him, declaring, "I'm going to be a little rough, so don't die." Curse Technique Amplification, blue. Curse Technique Reversal, red. Halo purple. Observing the scene, Lorien's eyes widened in surprise, as Gojo's actions were much faster than he had anticipated or seen in the original timeline. Well, I guess that's to be expected. After all, I can't expect him to take 2 minutes to activate one attack. However, just as Lorien was assessing the situation, he abruptly sensed an immense, looming danger and overpowering feeling that his life was genuinely at risk. Feeling this, Lorien's eyes narrowed, focusing intently on the swirling mass of purple energy amassing in front of Gojo. This thing can actually endanger me. Ha ha ha, this is it, ha ha. The moment Lorien registered this threat, a thrill of excitement surged through him. For the first time, someone at the same level as him managed to evoke such a sensation. After all, the last time he felt such danger was when facing someone well beyond his level, so it doesn't count. So, feeling emboldened by the challenge, Lorien decided to face the danger head-on, rather than rely on his dream ability to evade it. With a smile appearing on his face, he locked eyes with Gojo and laughed. "You're the first person at the same level as me who can make me feel true danger. Come on, then. Let's see which is stronger, physical mass or laws and rules." With that, Lorien didn't hesitate any longer as he raised his sword in front of him and declared, "Dream and reality, erasure. Reality, the attacks must collide." Upon seeing Lorien's determined stance, a joyful laugh escaped Gojo's lips, his excitement mirroring his opponent's. "Come on then." Swish! In a split second, a torrent of intangible mass surged forward, bearing the power to remove its target from reality and instantly erase everything in its path. Moreover, the speed of this attack was nothing short of phenomenal, even outpacing the reverse curse technique red, which is frankly a truly surprising feat considering how it was portrayed in the original timeline. However, Lorien didn't have time to think about this, as with a swift and powerful motion, he brandished his sword, releasing a colossal slash of vibrant, multicolored source energy that roared towards the oncoming attack. Moreover, this was no mere slash, as it was imbued with the abilities Lorien had previously declared. After all, though he couldn't directly influence objects he doesn't touch, he could still exert his power through his energy as a medium. Racing toward one another like unstoppable forces of nature, Gojo's attack, a swirling mass of deep purple energy, threatened to consume everything in its path, while Lorien's dreamlike, multicolored slash seemed to defy the very fabric of reality itself. Right now, the collision of these two attacks was imminent, and the results were unpredictable. Even the casters themselves weren't sure of what is going to happen. Meanwhile, on the edge of the forest near Jujutsu High, Principal Masamichi Yaga and a group of sorcerers gathered, their eyes locked on the distant confrontation. The atmosphere among them was thick with tension, as even from their vantage point, they could feel the immense energy radiating from the dueling powers. Damn it! What's going on? Chapter 150, You are a reality warper, aren't you? At that climactic moment, the tension in the air was soon transformed into pure shock, swiftly followed by a sense of dread as the gathered spectators at the edge of the forest witnessed a scene that defied their understanding. As Lorien's ethereal, multicolored sword slash met Gojo's intense purple mass of energy, both powers seemed to halt abruptly in their tracks. Buzz! It was as though time and space itself had come to a standstill, and the world began to glitch as if reality was struggling to comprehend the interaction between these two extraordinary attacks with similar attributes. However, in a sudden moment, the world appeared to have finally made its choice as it started to twitch and glitch like an old television screen from the 90s before Gojo's attack began to disintegrate. The erasure of Gojo's attack was akin to someone taking an eraser to a piece of painting, and wiping away its existence from the canvas of the world. Seeing this, a heavy, oppressive silence enveloped the onlookers as words failed them, their minds grappling with the impossible scene unfolding before their eyes. Right now, everything they once thought they knew was now being shattered to pieces. However, of all present, Gojo was perhaps the most shocked as he knew better than anyone else the true power of his own move. It's just that he didn't think of it now, or to be precise, he had no time to do so as he could see that even after erasing his attack, that slash didn't diminish in the slightest, so he had to get ready to avoid it. I can't block it. But just as he prepared to teleport away, the sword slash seemed to freeze mid-air before vanishing on its own. Seeing this, the crowd watching from a distance collectively sighed in relief, at least for the time being that is. However, Gojo felt no joy because of this turn of events as he looked toward Lorien. This is honestly the first time in his life that he felt so underestimated. Why did you stop? He asked. And hearing this, Lorien replied. I just wanted to see if pure energy combined with ability could outmatch rules, however, it seems that your strength isn't quite there yet. Not bothering to explain any further, Lorien smiled and continued. I just want to keep fighting. You're the first person to make me feel endangered, your strength level is very rare among those below the rule level. In truth, Lorien didn't want to end the battle just yet as he still wanted to fully analyze Gojo's technique. Right now, he had managed to study a significant portion of it, but there were still aspects that eluded him, such as domain expansion and other applications involving the use of space. Not to mention, even if he managed to fully decipher this ability, Lorien still had no intention of killing him. After all, Gojo had been one of his favorite characters before he arrived in this world. As long as Gojo doesn't provoke him, Lorien won't kill him, especially given that he was in the process of copying his technique and ability. Killing someone whom you have a favorable impression of after stealing their ability is too much even for someone who is as unscrupulous as Lorien. Tisk, that's too evil. Gojo, however, was unaware of Lorien's thoughts. Instead, he used this brief pause in the battle to reflect on what had just transpired. What is his ability? Moreover, what is he speaking about? Before attacking, he said something about physics and laws. And now, he said it again, so it probably means something, unless he is bluffing. However, I don't think he is. Laws, rules. Oh right. What did he say earlier again? Right. It's dream and reality. As Gojo mulled over these thoughts, his eyes shone brighter, as if he had suddenly pieced together some great thousand-years-old puzzle. It's just that as he did, a feeling of disbelief filled him. Is it really possible? However, Gojo's spirit and willpower are really strong enough, so despite guessing something, he didn't feel any fear. Rather, a fighting intent that he never knew existed was suddenly born. Ha 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 ha. I really want to try. It's just that feeling this fighting spirit, Lorien couldn't help but feel bewildered, wondering what had gotten into his opponent. Hey, did he break his brain? That would be bad for this world. Tisk, 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 just imagine Gojo turning into a villain, that would be a sight to see. Briefly entertained by this notion, a look of interest appeared in Lorien's eyes. However, before they could grow, they were quickly extinguished by his rationality. Shaking his head, he threw those messy thoughts aside as he asked Gojo. Hey, what's wrong with you? Don't you want to continue fighting? I haven't seen the full extent of your ability yet. However, hearing this, Gojo didn't answer, choosing to remain silent. However, this didn't last long as he finally spoke with conviction. I know your ability. Intrigued, Lorien smirked, not taking Gojo's claim too seriously. And what may it be? However, just as Lorien was feeling amused, Gojo's next response left him momentarily dumbfounded as his eyes widened in surprise. Your ability, it is to turn your imagination into reality, or maybe it's dreams into reality, I am not sure. Saying this, Gojo's narrowed as he became more sure of his guess after catching Lorien's reaction. I don't know if it's a cursed technique or if you are born like that, however, this would explain your abilities and the lack of curse energy, otherwise, my eyes would have easily detected it. Pausing briefly, Gojo delivered his final deduction, sounding more like a declaration than a question. You are what they call a reality warper, aren't you? Or at least something like that. Hearing this, Lorien snapped out of his shock, and stared intently at Gojo before bursting into laughter. Ha 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 ha, this is really interesting. You are the first person to figure it out. Wiping away a small tear from the corner of his eye, Lorien smiled provokingly. I really hate smart people, however, even if you guessed it right, what are you going to do about it? Chapter 151, Domain Expansion, Unlimited Void. Indeed, ever since Gojo had managed to deduce what his power is, Lorien didn't bother hiding it anymore. Honestly, what intrigued him more at this moment was how Gojo had managed to figure it out. Was it because of the words I said earlier when I launched my attack? Maybe it's that combined with many other factors. Tisk, the IQ per capita in this world is really outrageous. Megami was able to discover and analyze a very weird ability in the original in a matter of seconds from very small clues, and now Gojo did the same. It seems like I can't underestimate people. Shaking his head, Lorien didn't think about it any longer, and frankly, he was never actually that concerned about concealing his power. After all, he had long expected that someone would figure it out, it's just that he thought that he needed to show more clues. Moreover, his ability wasn't a secret or anything in the first place, it's just that Lorien didn't like being too high profile, that's all. After all, his power had no real constraints or weaknesses that others could exploit. The only potential weakness might be reality anchors, which could only target the reality aspect of his power, leaving his dream power unaffected. Even so, against a truly powerful reality warper, such tools often proved futile. In truth, a reality anchor's power is to turn the mud that a reality warper manipulates into solid rock or steel. However, what if there is someone strong enough to warp those matter? Well, the result is pretty obvious, a useless gadget and a bunch of dead people, if they even had a corpse left at the time. So, Lorien didn't really care about his ability being revealed, rather, he was more interested in what Gojo is going to do next. With these thoughts in mind, Lorien turned his attention to Gojo just in time to see him teleport closer. His curiosity piqued, Lorien wondered what Gojo would do next. Are you going to give up or what? Honestly, that would be a bit boring. However, then, just as Lorien was thinking of a way to provoke him, Gojo proved that there was no need for such a thing in the first place. So, with his fighting intent burning ever bright, Gojo didn't waste any time as he teleported again, appearing at an even closer range, and spoke. Indeed, that would be boring. Raising his fingers and crossing them in front of him, a smirk crossed Gojo's face as he announced. Domain Expansion, Unlimited Void. The moment those words were spoken, space seemed to shift around Lorien. Right now, it appeared as though he was standing in the midst of a starry sky, with countless shooting stars streaking past him. However, Lorien had little time to appreciate the beauty of the scene as the small space closed down and stabilized as Lorien found himself facing what looked like a black hole. And in an instant, Lorien's spirit was assaulted by an unfathomable amount of information, freezing him in place. Unlimited Void is a domain that brings the user and their targets inside the limitless itself, a vast void of infinite knowledge. There, boundless raw information floods into the target's mind, overwhelming them to the point where they're completely immobilized. And this is exactly what's happening now. Moreover, as Lorien was experiencing it firsthand, he now knew how broken this attack was. This feels weird. I can't see anything, nor feel anything, even my divine sense is getting flooded with information. I was wrong, this isn't a soul attack at all. Indeed, different from what people may believe, this domain isn't a soul attack, otherwise, with the strength of Lorien's soul, it may not be able to affect him, rather this attack is based on perception, it directly floods the opponent with information causing them to be able to hardly think or do anything. This is a technique that guarantees instant victory in most cases. However, sadly for Gojo, this isn't the case this time as after freezing in place for a second, Lorien was ultimately able to restore his thinking as he then immediately activated his power. Reality, filter and complete information, isolate domain. Activating this power, he filtered the influx of information and isolated himself from the domain, restoring his freedom. However, instead of launching an attack, Lorien turned to Gojo and asked. Why didn't you attack just now? You had enough time to land a good hit on me, but you didn't. Hearing this, Gojo grinned and responded to Lorien teasingly. I just want to fight, and honestly, I expected this attack to hold you down a bit longer, I didn't expect you to free yourself so soon. Hearing the words he said earlier being sent back at him, Lorien didn't feel angry, rather, he instantly busted out laughing in amusement. Ha 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 ha, you are really interesting. Smiling happily, Lorien couldn't help but genuinely appreciate this opponent of his. However, he soon turned his attention to the domain he was standing in. So, this is unlimited void. Hey, it is really much more robust than any other domain I previously felt, it is on another level altogether. Staying here for a minute or so will allow me to completely analyze this ability. A domain is technically a manifestation of a person's ability, and it could even be called the core of a person's ability, so with Lorien standing here, he now basically has unlimited and direct access to this ability. It seems that I have to stay here for a bit. Thinking of this, he decided not to forcibly shatter the domain using his power, as he turned his attention back to Gojo and asked. So what now? Let's continue. Chapter 152, End of Battle. With these words, Gojo wasted no time as he charged toward Lorien, launching his attack. Seeing this, Lorien couldn't help but feel speechless. Close quarters combat. Is he planning to use the sure hit ability of the domain to avenge the previous beatdown? Despite his amusement, Lorien had no choice but to raise his hand in defense against the relentless barrage of strikes coming his way. However, this time, even with Lorien's superior martial arts and the advantage of divine sense and clairvoyance, he still found himself somewhat suppressed. After all, the sure hit effect of the domain expansion was not to be ignored. Yet, even in this predicament, Lorien managed to avoid any damage by activating his Scabbard's ability, rendering all incoming attacks ineffective. Seeing this, Gojo persisted for a while but ultimately still retreated as he realized the futility of his efforts. Your ability is annoying. He sighed, addressing Lorien. I know, I get that a lot. I suppose I'll have to try something different. Gojo retorted as he unleashed a new wave of assaults using his abilities. And with red and blue manifesting in rapid succession, all Lorien could do was brace himself for the relentless onslaught, as evading them was impossible. This went on for a while, with Gojo bombarding Lorien from afar while the latter just kept defending while focusing most of his attention on analyzing both the domain and Gojo's abilities. The exchange continued in this manner until Lorien finally paused, a grin spreading across his face as he then gestured toward Gojo and uttered a single word. Red. Following that, a crimson beam of energy suddenly hurtled toward the shocked Gojo, who barely managed to raise blue in time to block it. Seeing this attack blocked, Lorien chuckled, having not expected it to connect in the first place. Ha ha, I must say, I quite like your ability, thank you. But upon hearing this, Gojo's just remained silent as his brain, boosted by the six eyes, worked furiously to sift through thousands of possibilities at an unfathomable speed. Did he just copy my ability? Given his power, it's not entirely surprising, but why would he even bother to do so? This probably has something to do with his reality-bending ability. Deeply pondering, Gojo's brain worked even faster, thinking about all the possible reasons. This lasted for a while until his eyes suddenly shone brightly as if solving the puzzle. Aha, so that's how it is. He didn't copy my ability, he analyzed and reproduced it. Every ability has its weaknesses, and for him, it's most likely energy consumption, so he probably analyzes different abilities and utilizes them to conserve energy and to improve his reality warping prowess. This may not be completely accurate, but it should be close enough. Moreover, this would explain his interest in both my and Yuda's techniques. It seems that Yuda's ability has very strong potential, otherwise, this guy won't be interested in it. Ha 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 ha. With this realization, Gojo grinned, unconcerned that his ability had been stolen. After all, cultivating a promising student was more important to him. Moreover, his adversary could achieve similar results with different methods, so there was no point in dwelling on it. And noticing this reaction, Lorien couldn't help but feel surprised at how calm and composed Gojo currently was. I've never seen someone react so calmly to having their ability copied. Surprised, hey? Laughed Gojo, unfazed by the situation. Seeing this, Lorien also smiled, a bit infected by the atmosphere. However, this only lasted for a moment before his face turned serious. I've already analyzed everything I needed, from the technique to the way he uses domain expansion. Right now, I could even create my own domain. However, I should wait until I have more information about open domains. Tisk, what a hassle. I can't wait for the dream path to finally be launched. However, just as Lorien pondered this and recalled the effort required to replicate just one ability, an idea suddenly sparked in his mind. In fact, I should probably plant a backdoor in the path that allows me to obtain a copy of every ability ever awakened within the dream path. That, coupled with the authority to strip anyone of their power as the Path Master, will prove invaluable in controlling the worlds I acquire. Tisk, 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 even if the path somehow turns out to be of little use to me and fails to grant my desires, it'll still be extremely helpful in controlling the world and training subordinates. At this thought, a smug smirk crept onto Lorien's face. However, noticing Gojo's weird expression as he looked at him, he cleared his throat and announced, "We should end this battle. It has already dragged on for far too long." As he said this, he raised his right hand, clenching it firmly while uttering, "Reality, shatter." The moment the words left his lips, an overwhelming force descended upon the domain, enveloping it in an instant. And as the force activated, it shattered the domain effortlessly, leaving no chance for retaliation or defense. Moreover, in the process, the power even targeted Gojo, who was standing opposite Lorien, inflicting immediate and unavoidable injury. Boom! With the domain finally popping like a balloon, Lorien landed gracefully on his feet, his gaze fixed on Gojo, who lay sprawled on the ground before him. Right now, Lorien knew he could easily unsheath his sword and finish Gojo off before he could recover. However, he still refrained from doing so. Instead, he waved his hand conjuring a chair upon which he sat as he observed Gojo, who slowly managed to sit up thanks to the reverse cursed energy working its magic. Cough. Cough. Spitting a mouthful of blood, Gojo adopted a somewhat lazy posture in front of Lorien, leaning on his right knee. His nonchalant and indifferent expression remained as he even dared to joke around in his current state. "You wasted an opportunity for a perfect combo just now." Chapter 153, Proposal and Leaving. "Indeed I did, however, it was never my intention to kill you in the first place." Is that so?" Shaking his head, Lorien didn't want to continue this conversation with Gojo, so he responded by changing the subject. "Well, your strength isn't that bad, you shouldn't be that far from the law leave, it's just a pity that this world and cursed energy are holding you back." A look of pity crossed Lorien's face as he continued. "If you were in another world, I wouldn't be surprised if you actually reached this level at your age. This world, another world, shackles, and cursed energy." Catching those keywords and ignoring most of what Lorien said, Gojo's mind raced to decipher their meaning, and when it finally did, he raised his head, locked eyes with Lorien, and asked, "Are you implying that there's more than one world? And what shackles are you talking about? And what is this law level you keep mentioning?" Hearing this question, Lorien knew he'd successfully baited Gojo and responded with a sly grin. "I can neither confirm nor deny this." However, even though this was far from a satisfactory answer, it still confirmed Gojo's suspicions. It's just that he still wanted more information. So, even though he was aware that Lorien was likely baiting him, he asked anyway. "And what about the shackles and the law level you mentioned?" Laws pertain to the rules governing a world and its functioning. The law level refers to pushing an ability to that conceptual, rule-like level and gaining authority over it. "Similar to your ability?" Gojo inquired, narrowing his eyes. "No, I'm not at that level yet, as I haven't gained authority over said law. However, my ability can affect the laws of the world, so you could call me a pseudo-law level." With that, Lorien switched the subject again. "Enough about that, this is too far away and it is impossible to reach this level in this world as you guys are shackled. Aren't you having a bit too much fun?" Gojo asked, taken aback by Lorien's penchant for leaving him hanging. "Ha ha ha, sorry, Lorien grinned, though his face betrayed no hint of remorse. "So, are you going to explain or not?" "Oh, right. Where were we?" "Shackles." "Ah, yes, the shackles." Cough. Clearing his throat, Lorien organized his thoughts before continuing. "Cursed energy itself is the shackle, not only for you but for everyone. Toji was the only one to break free from it, and he's the reason you were able to escape your fate and destiny of being linked to the star plasma vessel, effectively allowing you to attain enlightenment." Pausing briefly to catch some air, Lorien went on. "That was a bit off topic, but my point is that while cursed energy bestows power, it also imposes limits." As he spoke, he pointed a finger at Gojo. "For example, despite the strength of your ability, it still relies on cursed energy. After all, it remains a cursed technique." Saying this, Lorien halted again, gauging Gojo's reaction, before continuing. "Truth be told, I could have easily ended this battle from the outset by prohibiting the use of cursed techniques. However, that would have been too boring. Listening to Lorien's words and reflecting on his previous statements, Gojo responded with some ridicule. Boring? You just wanted to analyze my ability? However, I still wanted to ask about how the abilities in other worlds work, Mr. World Traveler. Hearing this nickname, Lorien was momentarily at a loss for words as he regarded Gojo. I really dislike talking with people who are too intelligent, though too dim-witted would be problematic as well. It seems that moderation should be applied in all situations. Shaking his head, Lorien pushed these thoughts aside, ignored Gojo's ridicule, and answered. Typically, abilities are independent of energy, which merely serves as fuel. Such abilities have vast potential. However, for abilities that are based on energy, their potential is only as great as the energy itself. Upon hearing this, Gojo made a striking realization, his eyes narrowing. The ability is only as strong as the energy itself. However, unconcerned with Gojo's thoughts, Lorien carried on. Well, this is just my conjecture for now, and it's not verified yet, so it could be wrong. However, I don't need to confirm it, as it's not my concern. Shrugging, Lorien casually switched topics again, arriving at the main point he'd wanted to convey from the start. Well, you shouldn't worry about this anymore. After all, you haven't yet reached the end of this path. Haven't reached the end? I'm not certain, but I believe so. Honestly, I think you still have room to grow. For instance, you could adapt your domain to be both a closed and open domain, similar to what Sukuna and the Brain Guy did. Sukuna? Are you talking about Ryaman Sukuna? And who is the Brain Guy? Well, let's forget about the last one. However, for your first question, yes. That's the one. I think you should follow his example and create an open domain. Its sure-hit ability, combined with purple, would be a nightmare to defend against. As Lorien spoke, he glanced towards the forest, where a group led by the principal was approaching. Upon noticing them, Lorien stood up, and the chair beneath him vanished. I should be on my way. I've already gotten what I wanted. It is time to leave. Stretching, Lorien began to walk away, his form fading from existence with each step. You can take my recommendation, or just wait until we finish creating a new power system with a higher cap and greater potential, then, you could just switch over. Lorien's final words lingered in the air as the group of sorcerers reached Gojo, who stood up and cheerfully greeted them as though nothing had happened. Everyone. Are you all right? Ha, yes. That guy just wanted to fight. Moreover, it seems that we don't have to worry much about him. I hope so. Chapter 154, Sorcerer's Reaction. After Yaga instinctively uttered these words while gazing at the direction Lorien had departed in, he then slowly rotated his head toward Gojo to inquire about what happened. However, as he did so, the principal immediately noticed Gojo's bad state, causing his eyes to contract in terror. Earlier, Yaga's entire focus was on Lorien, neglecting Gojo since he wasn't too concerned about him. Moreover, it didn't help that when he arrived, the two appeared to be conversing like old acquaintances, who could have anticipated that things were this tragic. However, before he could ask anything, Gojo spoke, a fake blush surfacing on his face as he joked with the others. Why are you all here? Are you worried about me? However, the response he received was quite frosty. No. Never. Pretending to be surprised, Gojo merely grinned in response, donning his eye covers once more and quietly tending to his injuries. However, one of the arriving sorcerers seemed to hold Gojo in high regard as he responded nervously. After the huge clash, we didn't hear any sound, so we thought the battle had ended and came to investigate. It's just that, Yaga was having none of it right now, as after he reacted, he instantly interjected and asked the question that was on everyone's mind. You're wounded, how did the fight go? Did you? Pausing briefly, Yaga continued, posing a question he never thought he'd ask in his lifetime. Did you win? Hearing this, silence pervaded the atmosphere as everyone awaited Gojo's response expectantly. However, to their immense disappointment and horror, Gojo busted out laughing and responded. Ha, no. I actually lost. Declaring this without a trace of shame or disappointment, Gojo stared at the sky and confidently declared. However, the next time things won't be so easy. It's just that no one shared his enthusiasm, as some couldn't help but exclaim in shock. What? Gojo lost? This? However, just then, the Yaga shouted, interrupting their fright. Enough! And seizing the chance, Mei, who had been silently observing, couldn't help but ask. What's his cursed technique? What intel were you able to gather? Hearing this, Gojo grinned wickedly and started chuckling uncontrollably. He really wanted to see people's reactions upon sharing the information he'd obtained. So, after a brief pause, he decided to answer. That guy isn't even a jujutsu sorcerer. What do you mean? Mei Mei furrowed her brow as the others also felt perplexed. He doesn't use cursed energy, and he doesn't have a cursed technique. Is he like Toji? One of the sorcerers questioned, lacking confidence in his response. Nope. Gojo countered. However, just then, seeing that this was going nowhere, the principal finally had enough and asked angrily. Stop beating around the bush, just say it. Alright, I thought you guys wanted to play, said Gojo waving his hand dismissively. This isn't the time for games, just say it. Having teased them enough, Gojo decided it was time to deliver the main course and announced. That guy is a reality warper, and yes, before you ask, it's similar to the ones you've seen in books and movies. Hearing this, silence ensued as to Gojo's disappointment. No one reacted to his declaration. I repeat, he is a reality warper. However, finally, after Gojo repeated the statement a second time, Nanami spoke up. Stop playing, what's his power? Hey! I am not joking. Seeing that Gojo still insisted on his answer and didn't appear to be fooling around, everyone fell quiet once more, absorbing the revelation. Is this true? It's a joke, right? However, while everyone was grappling with their shattered worldview, Yaga had already recovered and began asking crucial questions. Reality warping? Are there any limits to his power? Any weaknesses? And why did he fight you? Hearing the barrage of questions, Gojo clutched his forehead in pain, already regretting his decision. I shouldn't have said that. Regardless, now that the cat was out of the bag, he had no choice but to bite the bullet and respond. It's reality warping, so there are no limits or weaknesses. The only restriction I assume he has is energy, but even after our battle, it appears he's far from reaching it. Pausing briefly, Gojo then continued. As for the reason he fought me, it seems he wanted to analyze my ability to reduce his own energy consumption. Hearing this, Yaga continued asking, this time his voice full of dread. Then, did he succeed? Yes. Hearing this, Yaga took a deep breath while the other sorcerers present looked equally distressed. The only one who didn't seem to care was Mei Mei, as after hearing all of this, her eyes started shining as she thought of the possible service potential. We should meet sometime. However, in stark contrast to Mei Mei's indifference, Yaga began pacing back and forth as he tried to think of countermeasures. This is bad, really bad. Taking a deep breath, Yaga inquired once more. Any more information? Well, as you've seen, he has silver hair, golden eyes, and his name is Lorien. That's all I know for now, responded Gojo as he hid some of the information he deemed too shocking to announce. Damn it! Shouting in frustration, Yaga finally said. We have to report this. However, just as he said this, Gojo interrupted him. Considering that guy's personality, as far as I could tell, if we were to report this and the higher UPS were to anger him, he might just kill. Reaching here, Gojo paused momentarily before altering his words. Yes, we should report this. Even feeling that this wasn't enough, he continued. I'll even report it myself. Looking at this speechlessly, the sorcerers didn't know how to react. However, just then, seeing that their job was done and that there was no further purpose in remaining, Yaga spoke again. We should go back to the school and discuss it in more detail there. I agree. Let's go then. So, with this decided, the sorcerers started making their way back slowly, unknown what each of them was thinking. Chapter 155, Space and Soul. However, unbeknownst to any of them, each of their actions was under the observant gaze of Lorien, who had never genuinely departed. As after vanishing, he had merely concealed himself and surveyed their exchanges from beginning to end. Perched midair at a reasonable distance, Lorien chewed on the popcorn in his hands while reveling in the amusing play unfolding below. Tisk, 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 it seems that Gojo really doesn't like those higher UPS at all. However, if they annoy me, I don't mind getting rid of them. Kenjaku was going to do so anyways. Momentarily contemplating this, Lorien subsequently directed his thoughts toward Gojo's earlier response when he talked about his own defeat. He is very self-confident. Is this what they call enlightened in this world? It is more like being absolutely self-centered. This holds true for both him and Sukuna. Speaking of which, this was also evident during our earlier battle, as even upon discovering my power and in spite of his loss, not once did I notice his spirit falter or his will weaken. Indeed, quite the remarkable individual. Smiling lightly, Lorien scratched his shin as he thought. Following my suggestion, he should seek out a means to master open domains and potentially create a hybrid version. After all, his pride will never permit him to remain weak, especially since I informed him that his journey is far from over. With his talent, it shouldn't take long. This way, I'll have another open domain to analyze. Ha ha ha, a new sample. Yee. In truth, this was the primary motivation behind Lorien's revelation to Gojo. It was mainly to push him forward, ensuring there would be something novel to analyze in their next encounter. Moreover, Lorien wanted to strengthen Gojo's power somewhat, as he was genuinely dissatisfied with the original timeline's outcome. Too gloomy for my taste. I prefer good endings. Shaking his head, Lorien forcefully dismissed these thoughts, paying them no further attention. Hey, are they leaving so soon? And here I was enjoying myself. Watching the sorcerers below walk away, Lorien frowned lightly as he knew that the fun was over. So, seeing that his business was concluded and that he had nothing more to do here, Lorien waited for a while until the sorcerers completely faded from his line of sight before disappearing from his position with a swift teleportation. Swish! Materializing suddenly before an immense, ancient edifice, Lorien gazed at his own hand, lost in deep thought. So this is what space teleportation feels like? Task, tisk, I really like it. Contemplating the feeling of teleportation through space, a small smirk formed on Lorien's lips as he relished the experience. Indeed, after analyzing Gojo's ability, Lorien can now affect space. Moreover, it doesn't cost him that much, which is also the reason why Lorien bothered analyzing it in the first place. Having analyzed Gojo's ability, Lorien now possessed the power to manipulate space, and at a surprisingly low cost. This was, in fact, the very reason he chose to study Gojo's ability in the first place. After all, he knew there was a significant distinction between forcefully warping something he knew little about versus something he had an in-depth understanding of. Furthermore, Lorien's mastery and application of space extend far beyond simple teleportation. Right now, Lorien can virtually bend space to his will, as he used his analysis of Gojo's ability as a stepping stone to study the concept of space itself. Tightly clenching his fist, Lorien experienced a surge of elation and satisfaction. Thankfully I invested time in this, otherwise, analyzing space to such an extent on my own would have required a tremendous amount of time and energy. This is the difference between generating knowledge from scratch and having a ready-made book to consult. Thinking about this, Lorien couldn't help but feel anticipation for the imminent launch of the Dream Path. Even if it ultimately proves unhelpful to him, the sheer volume of knowledge and abilities he would automatically acquire as the owner of this path would elevate his reality warping capabilities to unparalleled heights. Ha ha ha, I really can't wait. With this thought in mind, Lorien turned his attention toward the ancient structure before him, his eyes narrowing slightly. So this is the tombs of the Star Hui. With his golden eyes gleaming with a mysterious and dreadful power, Lorien's gaze seemed to penetrate the barrier, utterly disregarding the space and time distortions, and focused on a figure concealed within one of the hidden chambers. Is this Tenjin? She truly resembles a thumb. Shaking his head, Lorien felt a bit of hesitation as he didn't know if his choice was correct or not. Should I get in and forcefully get information out of her? Should I talk to her? Or should I just leave this place? Feeling conflicted, Lorien knew that his choice at this moment could very well change everything. After all, should he kill Tenjin, the barriers surrounding Japan would vanish, and who knows what chaos would ensue as a consequence. Tisk, I really hate choices like this. However, just as Lorien was about to cheat and use his clairvoyance to select the most favorable outcome for himself, his phone rang once more. Ring. 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 Recognizing this distinctive ringtone, Lorien instantly deduced the caller's identity. It's Yuki, this is very unusual, why is she calling again? Sensing that something was amiss, Lorien promptly answered. Sup Yuki? Did you finish your work there? Yuki inquired, her voice filled with urgency. Yes, aren't you going to ask me how it went? Yes. Are you all right? Everything went well. Good then, tell me about the details later, there is something important I must report. What is it? Lorien asked, feeling somewhat baffled. I caught him. Hey. Confused, figurative question marks appeared atop Lorien's head as he didn't know what she was talking about. And noticing this confusion from across the phone, Yuki elaborated further. Mojito, the cursed spirit whose technique affects the soul, I caught it. What? Unable to contain his astonishment, Lorien involuntarily exclaimed, his shock swiftly replaced by joy and elation as he replied hurriedly. Where are you? At your house. All right, I'll be there as soon as possible. Uttering these words, Lorien didn't hesitate any longer as he hung up the phone and vanished once more using the power of space. As for Tenjin and the Tomb of the Star? He didn't care about that anymore. Chapter 156, Gourd and Book. Determined to reach home as quickly as possible, Lorien utilized his newfound ability to teleport in rapid succession, one instance after the other. Doing so, he made his way toward his home as quickly as his newfound abilities would allow. Alas, if it weren't for the inconvenient caveat that accompanied his new mastery of space, which is the inability to teleport outside his perception range or to locations that he didn't mark, he would have instantaneously teleported straight to his home without delay. Tisk, if I wasn't worried about the possibility of teleporting without coordinates and finding myself inadvertently on the surface of the sun, I would have attempted it. Resignedly shaking his head, Lorien didn't care about this any longer as after the continuous chain of successive teleportations, he was already close to his destination. Yup. Already there. The very instant the elegant estate appeared within Lorien's divine sense, he hastily teleported towards it, materializing instantaneously before its front door. Looking at this last barrier in front of him, Lorien didn't hesitate for even a fraction of a second as he promptly swung open the door and entered the house. Doing so, he immediately made his way to the living room where he sensed Yuki at. And as he finally reached his destination, he found Yuki sitting on the couch with a huge black gourd on the floor beside her. Noticing his presence, Yuki immediately stood up and said, joy and excitement apparent on her face. You are finally here. Yes, I made it here as quickly as I could. Saying this, Lorien pointed toward the gourd that he personally made for Yuki to catch Mojito and said. He's there, right? He's there, right? Yes, he is. Thankfully, you gave me this gourd, otherwise, capturing him would have been a lot harder considering his ability. Hearing this, Lorien wasn't surprised, after all, he knew how annoying Mojito's abilities were. So, when he sent Yuki to catch him, Lorien created this black creepy-looking gourd that holds the power to seal cursed spirits in a similar fashion to the prison realm to aid her. Even then it surprisingly took you so long. Yes. Responded Yuki as some exhaustion appeared on her face. Catching him was really a pain in the ass, his ability is annoying, moreover, he wasn't alone as he had partners, which is very rare for cursed spirits at his level. She continued. Well done. Thanks for the hard work. Hearing this, Yuki just waved her hand and smiled in response. As long as the power system you spoke of is created, then all my effort is worth it. It won't take long. I hope so. Smiling joyfully, Lorien spoke again. I'll be starting right now then. Great. By the way, do you have any extra rooms here? Yes, why? I want to stay here and guard you until you finish it. Hearing this, Lorien felt a bit speechless. Do I look like I need guarding? Moreover, did she misunderstand my analysis? I don't actually need to go into seclusion or anything like that. However, Lorien wasn't about to explain this as having an extra companion here to pass the boredom isn't that bad, not to mention that it's a beautiful girl. So, thinking of this, Lorien nodded in response and said. Choose any of the empty rooms here, you can live here as long as you want. Nodding as to indicate her understanding, Yuki finally couldn't help but ask, her voice full of curiosity. By the way, how did your visit to Jujutsu High go? It was all right, I just had a fight with Gojo. Hey. Hearing this, Yuki couldn't help but look at Lorien weirdly. You call that all right? Thank God you are okay, or else God knows what I'll do. Seeing this weird look, Lorien instantly knew what she was thinking, which caused him to feel speechless. Well, she never saw me fight, so this is to be expected. Shaking his head, Lorien spoke. Why are you looking at me like that? I won the fight. Hey? You did? Yes, I even copied his ability. Said Lorien as he raised his hand, causing a red ball of energy to appear on top of it for a moment before disappearing. Feeling shocked for a moment, Yuki quickly accepted it with delight. Great. With his and my strength, we can very likely achieve our plan. However, just as she thought of this, Lorien continued. Now that I learned how to control space, I can most likely upgrade the plan as I can transform the barrier we previously talked about into a real realm of sorts. However, it may require a lot of heavenly restrictions and limits, but it'll be worth it. Reaching here, Lorien paused for a moment before continuing. By the way, Gojo should be interested in our plan. When we spoke earlier he was next to me, so he may contact you later on. And what should I do? Inquired Yuki. Scratching his shin, Lorien remembered Gojo's earlier reaction and what he knew about him from the original timeline. Doing so, Lorien basically concluded that Gojo wasn't a threat, but rather, a great helper as he would most likely join them. Thinking of this, he responded. Just tell him the truth and some details about our objective and he'll most likely join us, and even if that was not the case, we have already gathered all we need, so he can't stop us even if he wanted to. Nodding in response, Yuki waved her hand indicating that this should be left to her. Oh, one more thing. Hearing this, Yuki couldn't help but roll her eyes. Is he treating me as his secretary? If it weren't for the system he is creating, I would have punched him in the face. However, as there was nothing she could do, she responded in a defeated manner. What is it? If Jujutsu High gets attacked, or if anything major happens, please notify me. Alright. Seeing this, Lorien didn't waste any more time as he lifted the gourd and started making his way back to his room. However, just as he did so, it was Yuki this time who stopped him. Wait. Hey. Turning his head in bewilderment, Lorien waited for her to speak. Here catch. Said Yuki as she threw something toward him. Swish. Catching it, Lorien looked at the object in his hand and observed it to be a book which caused him to look at Yuki again in confusion. It's a book that I've previously written about the soul, it contains all my research about it, it may or may not be useful, keep it. Hearing this, Lorien smiled and responded. Thank you. Alright, just don't fail. Ha ha, don't worry, I won't. Laughing confidently, Lorien finally took those two objects and walked to his room under Yuki's watchful eyes. Hope it works. Note. Well, I've stalled for a bit too long, mainly because I wanted to get more information from the official manga, chap 225, and it seems that my thoughts about open domains were correct, smiley face, but I had to replan some things, hence, the late update. Chapter 157, Poor Mojito. However, just as Lorien returned to his room, Yuki's phone suddenly started ringing. Ring. 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 Slumping heavily on the couch and placing one leg above the other, Yuki took a sip of the Coke bottle in front of her as she looked at the phone. This is... Looking at the caller, Yuki couldn't help but turn her head toward Lorien's room, feeling somewhat speechless. So I really have to wipe your ass for you, hey? Shaking her head, Yuki felt defeated, however, she finally decided to respond after giving off a long sigh full of exhaustion. Hi. Yo, Yuki, how are you doing? I am fine. Responded Yuki with the usual answer before immediately getting to the subject. Are you calling me because of that guy? She continued. Yet, however, I thought that you'll avoid answering me. No, he told me that you'll be calling, he also asked me to tell you about our plan. Oh, not afraid that I'll stop you? You can't. I wouldn't be so sure about that. Joked Gojo as his eyes narrowed, and his brain started operating at full capacity. They were expecting my call. Was he testing me earlier? Ha ha ha, this is getting more and more interesting. However, now that I know for sure that Yuki is involved, this plan shouldn't be bad, at least, it won't hurt normal people, or else, she wouldn't have taken part in it. Scratching his chin, Gojo's eyes shone brilliantly with expectation. Although Yuki's goals aren't exactly identical to mine, they are somewhat complementary, so this may actually turn good. Moreover, completely changing the power system will instantly overthrow the social structure I've been fighting against. It's just that I hope that this is not the usual case of the Dragon Slayer becoming the evil dragon at the end of the journey. Thinking of this, Gojo spoke again. So, wanna meet? Yes, send the location and I'll be there. Good, I'll send it right now. Pying. Receiving a notification, Yuki looked at the address she received for a moment before responding. See you there then. Alright. Beep. Hanging up the phone, Yuki looked briefly in the direction Lorien was in before taking the vest that was thrown on the sofa and standing up. Time to work. Again. Well, this isn't that bad actually, it would be great if Gojo joins us. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but feel a bit motivated as she drank what was left of the coke and made her way outside. Vroom. Moments later, the sound of a motorcycle roaring rang as Yuki sped away from the house. Meanwhile, just as she did all of this, Lorien was actually observing from his room using his divine sense. It's not that he was spying on her or anything, it's just that unless he limits his own perception, he would simply hear and see all that happens within his divine sense radius. Unless something unexpected happens, Gojo should join us. Well, now that we are nearing the end, it doesn't matter much, however, any additional aid is helpful. Shaking his head, Lorien didn't care about this anymore as turned his attention to the black gourd he had just placed on the floor. The soul is a very complex thing and is difficult to analyze, however, I don't need to fully analyze it either, I just have to attain a certain level of understanding which will allow me to construct the path I want. Moreover, a detailed analysis of the soul in this world won't do me any good, after all, contrary to the basic laws of the world such as time, space, and the elements which are almost identical in all worlds with minor differences, the basic elements of existence which are the soul, the body, and energy, are very distinct from one world to the other. For example, we rarely find similar energy in any world. Secondly, even if the soul and body may seem the same, they interact and are composed differently. This could be clearly seen in this world with the body and the soul actually one and the same, or at least merged. Rubbing his temples, Lorien couldn't help but feel a headache about the situation. Ugh, whatever, it's not like I have to fully analyze it. If I push at full speed, analyzing Mahito's technique will take me a few days, and further analysis and perfecting it will take a week or so. Then, I'll simply base the soul analysis on my own body, and make it as general as possible. However, that is only the beginning, as what I need to do after this is to merge everything I learned and every power seed I ever created to construct this power system. God knows how long this will take me. Shaking his head, Lorien decided not to think about it anymore as doing so was nothing but a waste of time. I better start analyzing instead of wasting time doing nothing. Thinking of this, Lorien didn't hesitate any longer as he waved his hand, causing the seal on the gourd to open and as a consequence releasing Mahito, who was imprisoned inside. Hey-ah! However, before the cursed spirit had any time to move, talk, or even realize what was happening, Lorien coughed him and forcefully compressed him into a ball which he held in his hand. It's just that while compressed in such form, Mahito still kept resisting with all his might, trying to escape. Right now, he really didn't care about revenge, all he wanted to do was run away from the humans who caught him. The farther away, the better. However, what he didn't know was that the more he used his ability to resist, the easier it was for Lorien to analyze his ability. This is the so-called "the more you resist, the more excited I become." Cough. While using this phrase here may be wrong, that is still the truth. Thought Lorien, feeling a bit funny. Tisk, 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 this guy is very cooperative, as a sign of gratitude, I'll end his life without causing him much pain after finish. Nodding slightly, Lorien praised his own benevolence as he then focused again on the task on hand. Well, time to work. Chapter 158, Gains. And like that, a few days passed with the 24th of December finally arriving. This is Christmas Eve, which is also a romantic holiday in Japan. It is the day when couples go out on dates, have dinner, exchange gifts, and spend time together, which is very similar to Valentine's Day. However, it's a pity that Lorien didn't have the opportunity to experience it. After all, even though he would love to go out on a date today, he didn't have time for it as he had all of his attention concentrated on studying the soul. Not to mention that he didn't even know what day it was. Phew. Giving off a long sigh, Lorien gazed deeply at Mahito, who was on top of his right hand, still suppressed in the form of a small ball. Scratching his shin, Lorien undid the sound seal he had previously put on him so he could focus. Doing so, he looked at this ball mockingly and spoke. You got anything last to say? However, all he was met with as a response was shouts and curses. Let me out! Bastard! Ack! I'll kill you! Hearing this, Lorien didn't feel angry or pissed off, instead, he was rather calm as he replied mockingly. Well, seeing that those were supposed to be your last words, I would have chosen them more carefully. Pausing for a moment, Lorien shook his head with pity before continuing. Not that what you were going to say matters anyways. Bastard. Hearing this outcry coming from the ball, Lorien just laughed and said before suddenly clenching his hand. It seems that you have nothing more to add, goodbye then. Crack. Puff. Puff. In an instant, and before Mojito could react, the ball was shattered and reduced to mere particles. Doing this, Lorien just dusted off his hands and jumped on the bed, closing his eyes as he started recalling the gains he earned in those past few days. Idle transfiguration. This cursed technique wasn't what I expected, it not only touches on the soul but also its relationship with the body. However, this is mainly because of the weird state the soul and body are in this world. Soul and body as one, or at least very closely related, this reminds me of the third magic, Cup of Heaven from Fate. However, just as Lorien thought of this, he quickly denied the idea. They are too far apart, those true magics in Fate are from a mystic point of view at least the level of transcendence as each of them represents a phase or aspect of the world. It's a pity that they are greatly suppressed by Gaia and Alea and are not able to show their true power. Not to mention that the users themselves may be limiting those magics. Shaking his head, Lorien quickly threw those thoughts aside as even though he wanted to get those true magics, he didn't know where that world was it. And even if he knew, he wouldn't go to it right now as he would probably get killed the moment he enters. The antivirus software they have installed is too strong. Tisk, tisk, tisk. Entertaining the idea, Lorien couldn't help but feel funny, however, he soon redirected his attention to the main subject. Oh, where was I again? Right, the soul. I've pretty much learned this cursed technique and fully mastered it, however, what I need to do now is research the soul, and not any sort of technique. This is similar to what I did with Gojo's technique in space. Well, forget about the souls in this world, they are too weird, and analyzing them won't do me any good. I'll base my research on my own soul, that way, not only will I improve my knowledge, but also gain control of this aspect that I have never touched. Thinking of this, Lorien couldn't help but feel motivated as he immediately sat from his laying position and crossed his legs. Speaking of which, I have never looked at my own soul, have I? Realizing this, Lorien was hit with a wave of curiosity as he couldn't help but want to look inside. However, just as he was about to do so, his phone suddenly rang. Ring. Ring. Yuki. Looking at the caller, Lorien couldn't help but feel interested. Weird, did something happen? Why is she calling me? Shrugging his shoulders, Lorien decided not to play the guessing game as he responded to the call. However, just as he did, his attention was soon attracted by the sound of explosions that could be heard in the background. Boom! Boom! Hearing this, Lorien's interest was piqued as he couldn't help but ask. Hey, Yuki, what's going on with the explosions in the background? Hi, I hope that I didn't interrupt anything important. No, I just finished analyzing the cursed technique and learning it, and you called. Great, it seems that everything is going well then. Yes, they are. So, are you going to tell me or not? Ah, right, it's jujutsu sorcerers and cursed spirits battling. Hey? Did anything happen? Yes, Geto declared war a while ago on Jututsu High and the battle has already commenced. Battle started. Hearing this, Lorien couldn't help but feel puzzled as he continued asking. What date is it? Hey? Weird question, but whatever, it's the 24th of December. Receiving the response he was waiting for, Lorien instantly realized what was happening, which caused him to facepalm. I was too focused on getting the things I need to create the dream path, which caused me to forget about the plot. Remembering the original timeline, Lorien's eyes couldn't help but flicker as he stood up from the bed. Well, it seems that I'll have to leave analyzing the soul for later, I can't let such an interesting event proceed without me. Moreover, I don't like sad endings. Chapter 159, Geto vs Yuta. Hello. Well, first of all, before starting the chapter, I'd like to thank SCZX, Itaki Asakura for their support on Patreon. It's really appreciated, especially in this hard period of time. Crying face, chapter. However, just then as Lorien was daydreaming, Yuki's voice from the other end of the phone suddenly woke him up. Hey! Are you listening to me? Ah! Yes, sorry about that, what were you saying again? Ugh, you should really get rid of this bad habit of yours. Alright, I already apologized, so, where were we? It's not about that, whatever, I was going to tell you about the battle, you told me to inform you when something happens to Jujutsu High, right? Yes, thank you. Alright then, I'm hanging up. Wait. Hey. Feeling puzzled, Yuki didn't know why Lorien interrupted her, so she couldn't help but ask. Anything else? Yes, I was previously too focused on analyzing that technique and studying the soul, so I didn't have time to ask you about Gojo. How did your discussion go? Ah, that. It went well. After giving him the details, he agreed to join our plan. He also told me to tell him if we needed any help from him. Great. It seems that we are getting ever so close to our goal. Ha ha ha, yes. Hearing the obvious happiness and cheerfulness coming from the other side of the phone, Lorien couldn't help but get infected by it as a smile silently appeared on his face. However, this only lasted for a moment as he then continued asking, his curiosity getting the better of him. So, Yuki, are you going to join the battle? Yes, Geto needs a beating to clear up his mind, moreover, now that our plan is nearing its execution, there is no need for such a variable to exist. Hearing the cold tone from the other end of the phone, Lorien couldn't help but feel startled, however, he then shook his head and replied. If that's what you want to do, then you are in the wrong location. What do you mean? Geto is probably in Jujutsu High right now, or at least, making his way there. So all of this is just a distraction. Yes. How did you? Oh, shit, it seems that you are right, Gojo just teleported some of his students back, it's just that I don't think that this is enough, tisk, damn Geto, Jujutsu High is too far away right now. Hearing this, Lorien instantly realized the exact time he was in the plot which caused him to laugh. Well, you don't have to worry about it, I'll go there myself, I am quite interested in this show. You're going to participate? Yes. Alright then, I'll just hang around here. Well, do that I guess. Alright, I gotta go, I need to help those little guys a bit. Alright, see ya then. Goodbye. Hanging up the phone, Lorien shook his head as a smile silently appeared on his face. This girl is very interesting. Well, whatever, I have to go, I don't want to miss anything. Thinking of this, Lorien placed the phone he was holding in his pocket and then disappeared from his location. Swish. However, just as Lorien was making his way toward Jujutsu High, the situation there changed completely after the students reached there. Right now, Yuta could be seen standing in front of Geto as he looked in shock toward his injured friends. Maki-san. Panda-kun. Inumaki-kun. Looking at this, Geto lowered his hands and spoke calmly for once. To be honest, I wanted you to live, too, Okutsu, but this is all for the future of the Jujutsu world. However, Yuta was having none of this as he was currently too angry after seeing the state of his companions. So. Boom. In an instant, Yuta took out his sword and summoned Rika as he then attacked Geto, declaring the beginning of this battle. However, what neither of them knew was that some distance away, Lorien was sitting cross-legged watching them closely. It seems that I underestimated the rareness of the reverse curse technique, seeing that Geto is still one-handed. Well, whatever, let's watch the battle, this is much better than any movie I previously watched, nothing better than a live view. Boom. Crash. As the battle continued, Lorien kept most of his attention focused on Rika as he couldn't help but start analyzing her. I can clearly feel the soul inside, truly incredible. However, it's a pity that Lorien didn't have much time to observe it as the battle between Yuta and Geto soon entered its late stages. I don't know. I don't understand about any sorcerers outside of this school, so I don't understand if you are right or wrong. Screamed Yuta at Geto, who was laying on the ground. But in order to remain with all my friends, in order for me to believe that it's okay for me to be alive, I have to kill you. Continued Yuta shouting. However, hearing this, Geto was rather calm as he stood up from the ground and responded calmly. You're egotistical, still, self-affirmation, hey? There is nothing more important than that in life. Whipping out the blood from the corner of his mouth, Geto then declared. In which case, I'll also use my full force to kill you, I won't compromise on quality or quantity anymore. Saying this, Geto smiled smugly as he extended his hand forward and continued. Did you know? There are 16 known cursed spirits that are of special grade, and here is one of them, Tamamonome incarnate. Moreover, I'll combine the 4.461 curses I possess into one, and strike you with it. The moment Geto said this, Lorien knew that the end of the battle was finally there, causing him to get excited. Well, it seems I can finally make my appearance again. However, Geto still talks a lot. If he truly focused on killing Yuta in the beginning without explaining each small thing he does, he might have been able to do it. Well, whatever, let's continue watching. It seems that Yuta has already contacted Rika. Chapter 160, Zero-Handed Geto. Thank you for always protecting me. Thank you for falling in love with me. Could you lend me your power one more time? I want to stop him. I don't need anything else after that. I'll give you my future, my heart, my body, everything. From now on, we'll truly be together forever. I love you, Rika. Shall we die together? Those were the words Yuta gently uttered as he looked at the cursed spirit in front of him. It was unknown what kind of thoughts were going through his mind right now, however, he has never felt so clear-minded and peaceful. Ever since losing Rika, his life has gone downhills, he had lost his confidence alongside his will to live. However, ever since meeting Gojo, he started looking for a reason to continue living, truly living. He wanted to have friends, laugh, and have fun like normal people, and in his time at Jujutsu High, he partially succeeded in doing so. It's just that sadly, happy things don't last for long as everything has its end. However, he wasn't about to give up that easily, at least, not before protecting those new companions of his. He knew for a fact that Rika loved him, and this feeling was mutual, otherwise, he wouldn't have instinctively cursed her the moment she died, tying her to him. And now, it seems that it is finally time to put an end to this long agonizing volume while also breathing hope into a new one. So, hearing what Yuta said and feeling his emotions, Rika reacted like never before as it started changing shape, with the eye that had always been closed above its giant mouth finally opening. Yuta. 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 I love you. Screaming loudly, the cursed spirit Rika unleashed immense power like never before as the cursed energy around it effectively materialized. Seeing this, the previously calm Geto finally reacted as his eyes narrowed, assessing the situation. He's offering himself as a sacrifice to release the limit on her cursed energy. An ugly smile appearing on his beaten-up face, Geto extended his only hand forward, gathering his energy as he spoke. So that's how you want it, womanizer. However, hearing this, Yuta raised up his finger and responded calmly. Right now, it was maybe the calmest he had felt in his life. It's pure love. However, Geto was having none of it, as after seeing the pinkish blob of energy condensing above Yuta's finger, he pushed himself to the limit, accumulating more energy as he shouted in response. Then I fight for justice. And then, in an instant, those black and pink balls of energy transformed into beams of pure concentrated power and rushed toward one another. Swish! Buzz! However, what was unexpected was that once those two attacks met, there was no clash or stagnation to speak of, as the pink-colored attack launched by Yuta instantly overwhelmed Geto's attack without any trouble. It was clear that the two attacks were not of the same level at all. It's just that even though one attack overwhelmed the other, it doesn't mean that there would be no damage to the surroundings. After all, the concentrated energy still had to escape somehow, so, as a consequence, an overwhelming explosion occurred, shrouding everything around them. Crack! Crack! Boom! The first to bear the blunt was Geto as the attack was targeting him, then, it was the turn of everything around, from the ground and the walls to the buildings and other structures. However, it doesn't end there, as Lorien himself was also affected as he was sitting nearby. Wheel, shit! Looking at the expanding radius of pink energy rushing toward him, Lorien couldn't help but feel a bit speechless. Not only did he gain nothing from watching the battle, but he also got attacked without provoking anyone. First, I find out that Yuta's ability is actually based on the cursed spirit Rika's ability to change and adapt, meaning that it is not useful to me. And now this shit. Indeed, ever since coming here, Lorien had his attention focused on Yuta as he analyzed his ability and tried to copy it. However, he soon discovered that this was useless, as it was very different from any other ability he had previously seen. Well, whatever, it's not time for this. Moreover, there is no need to focus that much on it, as after I launch the dream path, once anyone converts to the path or awakens, I'll get a full analysis to their ability. I'll just wait it out, I guess. Shaking his head, Lorien threw those thoughts aside as he extended his hand, causing the ring on his finger to transform into a sword. Doing this, Lorien then activated the ability of his scabbard, causing a multicolored barrier to appear surrounding him. The sole objective of this barrier was to protect him from all harm and separate him from the outside world. And it clearly did its job, as when the pinkish energy released by Yuta made contact with this barrier, the energy froze in place, unable to advance. This attack wasn't able to damage this barrier in the least bit, and not to mention that, it was not even able to make the barrier react. This is expected. Otherwise, after feeding my weapons so much dream energy, it would be a waste if they are not so strong. It's finally over. Buzz. With the overwhelming energy surrounding the place disappearing, everyone restored their vision and were finally able to see the situation. Right now, it looked as if a nuke exploded there. Nothing was left intact with the position where Geto previously stood receiving the most damage. It's just that the target himself, Geto, was nowhere to be seen. It was unknown if he was directly killed or was able to escape. However, this is only the case for normal people, as Lorien was instantly able to lock into Geto's position using his divine sense. Tisk, 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 doesn't look good, does he? Ha ha ha, it seems that Geto has a talent for losing hands. I took out one of his hands and Yuta took the other. I really wonder how he'll be able to go to the Twala in the future. Will he order the cursed spirits to help him? Shit. That's not a picture I want to see. Shaking his head quickly, Lorien immediately threw this ugly image out of his mind as he then turned his attention again toward Yuta. There was really no need to pay more attention to Geto. After all, Lorien also sensed Gojo's presence, which means that Geto's journey is finally coming to an end. Let's deal with Yuta and then watch Geto's body. I want to see if I'll be able to catch Kenjaku. Chapter 161, Rika. A while later. Hey. Hey. Yuta. Yuta. Hey. Hey, Yuta, are you okay? Mustard Leaf. Wake up, Yuta. Hearing a number of voices calling out to him, Yuta, who was currently lying on the ground, began opening his eyes slowly. And as he did, the voices near him became clearer as his blurry vision also sharpened, allowing him to see everything around him. Noticing this, Panda, who was sitting to Yuta's left, breathed a sigh of relief seeing that he was okay. Oh, he's awake. Swish. Swiftly sitting up, Yuta immediately started looking at his companions, examining their states and checking their injuries. Everyone. Your injuries. Maki-san, Inumaki-kun. Wait. Panda-kun, your arm isn't healed. Hearing this, Maki smiled and comforted him. Chill out, we are all doing better than you right now. Unlike those other two, my arm can be fixed later, thanks for saving us. Said Panda. Salmon. Hearing this, tears of joy appeared in Yuta's eyes as he looked at the trio in front of him. He had achieved his goal, and his sacrifice wasn't in vain. However, just before he could say anything, a voice abruptly sounded from behind calling out to him, which instantly caused his joy to get extinguished. And looking in its direction, Lorien immediately noticed the cursed spirit Rika looking at him silently. Seeing this, Yuta stood up and started making his way toward it as he then spoke in a very calm and serene voice. Sorry, Rika-chan. I've kept you waiting. However, his companions looked confused as they didn't know what was happening. What's the matter, Yuta? Inquired Panda. Hearing this, Yuta visibly shook as he then responded with a bit of guilt and reluctance. Well, he really didn't know how to face his friends right now, as he thought that this was the last time he'd see them. So, looking to the side, he spoke lightly, trying to make the situation not seem that serious. In exchange for borrowing her power, I promised to go with Rika-chan. However, the moment he said this, he instantly heard an exclamation from Maki. What? Don't you know that means dying? What were you thinking, you idiot? Well. It's just that before Yuta could find an excuse and answer, the cursed spirit Rika, who was floating not far from him, suddenly melted into a darkish liquid. However, it wasn't completely gone, as after a large portion of its body disappeared, a little girl suddenly became visible. This sudden occurrence immediately caused everyone to fall silent as they looked in confusion at the girl. Hey! It's just that while the others didn't know her, Yuta immediately recognized who she was the moment she appeared. Rika-chan. This was not the cursed spirit Rika, rather, it was the soul of the little girl who died right in front of Yuta years ago. But, just before Yuta could say anything, the noise of clapping suddenly sounded nearby as Gojo emerged from their left as he made his way here. Clap. 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 Congratulations, you managed to break the curse. He said. But, before Gojo could continue explaining, his student suddenly asked a question that caused him to almost face-palm. Who are you? You're good-looking, Gojo Satoru-sensei. Gojo responded before ignoring their reaction and continuing his explanation. I thought the theory Yuta came up with sounded interesting, so I requested an investigation into your family. The investigation of Rika's was finished quite a long time ago, but Yuta's was full of holes at best. So, it then came to light, you're the descendant of Sugawara Michizane. Saying this, Gojo restored his joyful state as he continued speaking cheerfully. This makes us super distant relatives. Yay! 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 And, hearing the trio next to Yuta immediately reacted. Suga. However, hearing all of this, Yuta was still confused as he didn't know who or what they were talking about. Hey? Who? One of Japan's 3 great apparitions. Explained Maki. He's a super big shot sorcerer. Said Panda. Tuna. By now, Gojo finally stopped his small celebration and said to Yuta. You were right, Yuta, Rika didn't place a curse on you, you placed a curse on Rika. Hearing this, flashbacks instantly appeared in Yuta's mind as he remembered what happened at the time. That's right, back then I rejected Rika-chan's death. Now the one who placed the curse has cancelled the bond, and so long as the one who was cursed doesn't seek any penalty, it's fully broken now. Said Gojo. Of course, that much was obvious after seeing her in that form. He continued as he looked at the silent Rika. However, hearing all of this, Yuta fell to his knees as tears started falling from his eyes. The guilt he was feeling right now was immense. It was all my fault, wasn't it? I turned you into that form. I hurt all those people, and I nearly caused everyone to die when Geto came after me. Clenching his hair in his fists, Yuta lowered his head even further. It's all my, it's all my, it's all my. However, just then, Rika, who had been silent all this time, suddenly got close to Yuta and hugged him. Yuta, thank you. Thank you for giving me more time, and letting me stay by your side. The past 6 years, I've been happier than I ever was alive. Saying this, Rika knew that she didn't have much time left, so she took a step back and said her final words as she started disappearing into beautiful light particles. Bye-bye, take care. And don't come over here too soon, okay? Seeing this, even more tears welled up in Yuta's eyes as all he could answer was, okay. Hearing this answer, Rika extended her hand, brushing Yuta's cheek one last time. See you later. However, just then, a voice suddenly appeared interrupting this touching moment. Cough. Well, aren't you leaving too soon? Chapter 162, Drama Queens. Well, aren't you leaving too soon? The moment this phrase was uttered, it weirdly echoed across this space, aided by some sort of mysterious power. It was as if the owner of this voice was talking right next to them. And as this happened, everyone present felt a weird and vague power shroud the place. At this moment, it felt as if the rules of the world were being tampered with. And as a consequence, something miraculous happened right in front of their dumbfounded eyes. Rika's soul, which was just fractions of a second away from disappearing forever, instantly solidified. If it weren't for knowing its true state, those present may mistake it for a real entity. Hey! What is happening? This sudden surprise instantly caused the situation to become chaotic as those present started looking around trying to find the culprit. However, that wasn't the case for everyone, as Gojo, who was standing nearby, still maintained his nonchalant smile as he looked amusedly at his students who kept scanning the surroundings vigilantly. After all, the moment the voice sounded, he instantly recognized its owner. So, after watching his students aimlessly look around for a while, he finally spoke. Since when did you arrive? Ahaha, I've been here since the beginning. Responded Lorien as he silently appeared next to Rika. This sudden emergence caused Rika to instantly jump in fright and move quickly towards Yuta's side, who kept looking at Lorien vigilantly. Isn't this the guy who previously fought Gojo-sensei? Why do they look like good friends right now? Did something happen when I wasn't here? Those were the thoughts shared by the second-year students as they continued observing Lorien silently. However, not caring about them, Lorien looked at Rika amusedly. Ha ha ha, did I just scare a ghost? That's a new achievement. Shaking his head, Lorien then suppressed those thoughts as he spoke to her. So, do you want me to help you restore your body? Hey! What? Hearing this, A number of exclamations sounded as Yuta looked at Lorien with both shock and hope as he immediately spoke. You can resurrect her. Saying this, Yuta, who was still on his knees, lowered his head and begged. Please, if you could, I am willing to give. It's just that before Yuta could finish his phrase, he was immediately interrupted by Panda. Yuta. Stop. This was echoed by Maki, who followed Panda's example. Calm down, Yuta, we still don't know if there is a catch and if it is even possible. Moreover, Rika, who had been keeping silent, finally spoke, her voice full of calmness and serenity. Yuta, if coming back to life means trading my mind for yours or even hurting you, then I don't want it. I have already lived my life, and there is no need to forcibly hang on. Hearing this, Yuta didn't know what to feel as he looked at Rika, his eyes full of tears. Rika. It's just that at this moment, a discordant noise sounded nearby, interrupting this touching moment. Sniff. Sniff. Getting startled, everyone looked at the source of the noise just to find Lorien and Gojo standing next to each other, tears in their eyes as they watched this touching scene. Both of them held tissues in their hand as they kept wiping their eyes using them. But noticing this sudden shift in attention, Lorien immediately turned his head towards Gojo and inquired, still faking tears. I didn't know that you taught a bunch of drama queens. It must have been very hard. Sniff. Sniff. Mirroring Lorien's actions, Gojo whipped his nose as he then took a deep breath and responded. I am very proud of them. At least now I am sure that they have a future in acting, but I might need some contacts to get them into the entertainment scene. Hearing this, Lorien instantly puffed out his chest and said, full of confidence. You don't have to worry about that. I'll be there for them. I have already seen their talents, and I won't allow them to go to waste. Hearing this, Gojo looked touched as he looked at Lorien gratefully. Thank you. I'll remember it. However, Lorien immediately waved his hand and said. Don't worry about it, aren't we brothers? Haha, yes. It's just that as Gojo and Lorien were getting deeper and deeper into the play, the second-year students and Rika kept watching them powerlessly. The silver hair, the strength, and this annoying attitude and personality, those two guys are truly brothers, aren't they? However, while feeling speechless looking at this sudden drama, they also calmed down and relaxed a bit. After all, if the man who appeared, Lorien, was an enemy, Gojo wouldn't have been joking with him like this, at least not in such a friendly manner. So, seeing that Gojo and Lorien have finished their play, Yuta finally stood up and spoke to Lorien. I apologize for what happened just now, could you please explain how will you restore her? Hearing this question, Gojo, who was previously acting with Lorien, also became interested, so, he immediately asked Lorien. Yes, I am also curious about that, are you going to reality warp it or what? However, hearing this, Lorien didn't know how to answer as he felt speechless. Resurrection. When did I say I was going to resurrect her? Not to mention me, even Moira won't be able to do such a thing, all I am doing is creating a new body and then pushing her soul back into it. And even the word creating a body is a bit strained, after all, I am just using the already present structure from her DNA and blindly copying it. As for creating a new body from scratch without such aid, I have a higher chance of blowing up the earth right here and now than doing that. So, after scratching his head and thinking about it for a bit, Lorien still decided to explain. Actually. Chapter 163, The Miracle of Life. Actually, I think that we have some misunderstanding here. Hey? Aren't you going to resurrect her? Immediately questioned Yuta, disappointment clear in his voice. No, it's not that, it's just the naming. If by resurrection you mean giving her another body, then yes, I am able to do that, however, frankly, I don't think it should be called that. Hearing this, Yuta felt a burst of relief as there was still hope. He didn't really care about the naming or anything like that, all he cared about was the possibility of restoring Rika. However, the curious Gojo wasn't satisfied with such an inexplicable answer, he wanted more details. So, he moved his face closer and inquired while poking at Lorien using his index finger. Oh, it seems that there is something interesting to talk about, come on, explain. Seeing this, Lorien couldn't help but feel speechless, he knew that this guy won't stop annoying him until he answered. Whatever. Sigh. Giving off a long sigh, Lorien swept his gaze and looked at those present before asking. What do you think about the human body? Hearing such a weird question, everyone felt confused not knowing how to respond, after all, it was too vague. Seeing this, Lorien immediately gave up his interactive learning method as he didn't want to waste any more time and decided to explain his thoughts directly. The human body is complex, right? Yes. Answered Panda in a guessing manner. After all, he didn't have a human body himself. Hearing this, Lorien's eyebrows couldn't help but start twitching uncontrollably. However, he still decided to ignore him and continue. Then how complex do you think it is? Very complex. Nope. Calling it very complex is a complete understatement. After all, it is in its essence an unimaginable miracle. Saying this, Lorien took a deep breath and continued. In fact, life itself is a miracle. Not just the human body, any living organism could and should be called as such. You see, it is so complex that we could take all of humanity's wisdom and we wouldn't even be able to create a single fly. Hearing this, Rika, who was drawn to the subject, couldn't help but ask. Then, what about all the cloning and studies that are being done? And what about him? Suddenly interjected Yuta while pointing at Panda. Hey! Sorry. Ignoring their bickering, Lorien answered. You have just answered it yourself. Hey! All we can do is just copy. There is a huge difference between copying something that already exists by following already prepared steps and creating something from scratch. And what about Panda? Hearing this, Lorien turned his eyes toward Panda and looked at him deeply. It was as if his gaze penetrated him and looked directly at his essence. This caused the latter to feel a bit uncomfortable as he started fidgeting. However, thankfully, Lorien soon turned his eyes away and said. As I have already stated, he was not created from scratch, he is based on the souls inside of his body. Answering their question, Lorien then resumed his thought process. The reason I am saying this is because life as a miracle is usually very overlooked as we humans tend to take things that we are used to for granted. For example, the human body is composed of trillions of cells that work together to perform a vast array of functions, from the smallest organelles within cells to the largest organs. Every component of the human body is intricately designed to carry out specific tasks. And in fact, above our shoulders sits one if not the most complex and complicated object in the known universe, which is the brain. So, if such a body needs to be created from scratch, all of those parameters and functions need to be set manually. You can imagine how complex that would be. Saying this, Lorien pointed at his own head and spoke, reinforcing his opinion. The human brain alone has 86 billion neurons, and each neuron is connected to 10,000 other neurons. Do you understand how complex it is? I feel like when thinking about miracles, people tend to think about the soul. However, the body itself is as miraculous and unique as the soul is. After all, they are both aspects of life. Saying this, Lorien's mind couldn't help but wander a bit as he thought about the worlds he visited and the information he knew. All abilities are based on the soul or body. A mutation or evolution here and there could generate unimaginable power. I can't even begin to imagine creating such a thing. Speaking of creating such a thing, humans have always tried copying the brain and created things such as artificial intelligence. However, no matter how many fancy words we use and how smart it becomes, it is nothing but a machine. It lacks wisdom, emotions, and most importantly potential. See, it is this potential that exists in all living creatures what makes this miracle even more incredible. The more he spoke, the more excited Lorien became. After all, he had just been analyzing the soul and learning more about life, and now that he had the opportunity to express his thoughts and speak his mind, he just let go of all constraints. However, just as he was about to continue speaking, he froze as he noticed everyone looking at him in a daze. I know this look, it is the one I usually made when I studied mathematics in college. I'd always look at the professors like this. Well, they are now probably thinking something along the lines of, why is he even telling us this? Would he just not shut up? Did he go crazy? What does this have to do with the story? Cough. Shaking his head, Lorien immediately threw those thoughts aside, deciding not to think about it anymore. Caei. I really miss Saigei. She is a really good listener. When she was here, I'd talk to her about whatever I found, but here, there is no one close enough to talk to. I really wonder how she's doing now. Shaking his head and giving off a long sigh, Lorien decided to stop talking about the subject. After all, he knew that he had gone on a long unnecessary tangent rumbling about things most people have no interest in. So, after surprising his desire to continue talking about the topic, he decided to simplify things. Well, all you need to know is that I am not able to truly create a body. However, what I can do is basically simulate the cloning process using my power and accelerate it, and while doing so I'll just put her soul in that body. That way, it is the same genes and there won't be an issue. Moreover, I'll guide the merge using my power so there is nothing to worry about. The moment Lorien said this, everyone woke up from their daze feeling a bit embarrassed. Well, I didn't understand much, however, thank you. Spoke Yuta while scratching his head. Yet, whatever, so do you want to restore your body or not? Said Lorien as he turned his head towards Rika. After all, he still wanted her consent as even though he is able to give her a chance, he won't force it. The main reason Lorien is even doing this is because he felt a bit touched after watching the original, and now that he is here and can make a difference, he decided to help. So, what will it be, acceptance, or a second chance? Note. You can find the next chapter 164 free on Patreon, go check it out there. Author. Patreon.com/author Husem, support me there and get to read up to 15 advanced chapters or more. You can also find me now by simply typing, Husem. Comment. 15 comment. Vote. 2 left. Chapter 164, Regret Resolved. Hearing Lorien's question, Rika felt a bit uncomfortable. After all, she had just accepted her death and decided to leave this world peacefully. She had even expressed her emotions in a long and touching speech, completely exposing her thoughts and feelings. However, seeing Yuta's expectant eyes and thinking about the possibility of getting another chance, she soon threw those complex thoughts aside. After all, who doesn't want to continue living? After all, it's better to continue staying with Yuta instead of leaving a memory full of regret and remorse. Moreover, there was also her family who she longed to meet. As for how to explain the situation, she'll think about it later. So, deciding on this, Rika turned her head toward Lorien and said, "Please, help me." Hearing this, Lorien smiled as he had long expected this answer. After all, even though there was a chance of her refusing, it was very negligible. Alright then, let's begin. The moment Lorien said this, the vast power that was still enveloping the place suddenly started churning and twisting. And as it did, Rika, who was standing nearby, got surrounded by a multicolored light. Then, before anyone could react, this light transformed into a cocoon enveloping her inside. Seeing this, Yuta, who was right next to her, couldn't help but look a bit worried. He wouldn't think that this would truly succeed until he sees Rika standing in front of him. After all, even though Lorien explained that this wasn't technically resurrection, it was still unbelievable. However, just as he was feeling a mix of both anticipation and fear, Yuta's mind couldn't help but wander to what would happen after Rika is resurrected. First of all, it's their relationship, as there is now suddenly a 6 years age gap between them. Moreover, there is also society and how to reintegrate into it. This, what should I do? Moreover, there is. It's just that right now, no one was interested in what Yuta was thinking or dining, as everyone was observing the multicolored cocoon Rika is in. However, no matter how they looked, they couldn't see anything inside. Even Gojo's 6 eyes weren't enough to do so. Not to mention them, even Lorien himself wasn't looking inside. After all, he isn't interested in looking at a naked child. Well, those lowly lovers, or pedos as I like to call them, may be interested in this. However, I prefer staying away from such things. But honestly, how do they even? Well, never mind, let's not get into that shithole. Shaking his head, Lorien suppressed those messy thoughts as he refocused his attention on the work at hand. And as he did, the process instantly accelerated as everyone could feel the vast power that was shrouding the place get centralized in one location. Moreover, there seems to be some energy in the atmosphere rushing towards the cocoon and getting absorbed by it. Crack! Crack! Soon after, cracks appeared on the multicolored cocoon as it then suddenly exploded into an array of light that blinded everyone for a moment. Boom! Quickly looking toward the center of the explosion, those present held their breath in anticipation and worry as they waited for the result, not knowing if Lorien succeeded or not. Thankfully, they didn't have to wait for long, as a small shadow was soon visible from the center of the beautiful light array. This was obviously Rika, who restored her physical form. She was even wearing the same clothes she had in her soul form. Seeing this, Yuta instantly rushed forward, hugging her as tears fell from both of their eyes. However, just while everyone was watching this touching moment, Gojo, who was standing nearby, was paying attention to something else entirely. This cursed energy. No wonder so much energy was absorbed from the surroundings as the body was being conceived. It seems that we are getting another sorcerer, however. Looking at both Rika and Yuta, Gojo didn't know if this was a good thing or not. Whatever, let time tell, not to mention that there might not be any more sorcerers in the future. Thinking of this, Gaji couldn't help but turn his head toward Lorien, who was walking in his direction. So, what are you going to do now? Questioned Gojo. Probably going back to study a bit more before starting the plan. Responded Lorien. However, as he said this, he couldn't help but scratch his shin as he thought of the things he was going to study. Well, I need to further study the soul, then go back to studying space, and then use my eyes as a base to study time. Even if it's just a very small fraction, this knowledge will not only be useful for the path I am creating, as it will help in the soul aspect and the realm/dimension creation aspect, but it will also be of great aid when I create my domain. Tisk, my perfectionist tendencies are really annoying sometimes. If it weren't for me wanting to create the most powerful domain I could at once based on all of that and with dream/reality as a core, I would have long finished making it. However, now that I think of it, if it weren't for this, the domain created wouldn't be of use to me. Well, whatever. Shaking his head, Lorien threw those thoughts aside as he restored his attention and continued speaking. Then, I am going to tour the world and deal with some things. Is it related to the plan? Yes, I need to make some pillars of sorts to fix the dimension, otherwise, there might be some surprises, and we don't like those. I see. If you need any help then call me. Alright then. Finally responded Lorien as he turned his head towards the ongoing touching scene. Now that he finished what he wanted to do and resolved one of the regrets he had when he previously watched the series, Lorien could now go back home to shut himself back in. As for what will happen next? He really had no interest in that. So, after waving goodbye at Gojo, Lorien silently disappeared from his position without anyone noticing him. This of course later on caused a bit of regret to Yuta and Rika, who after calming down wanted to thank him but were not able to find him. It's okay, we'll meet him again. Chapter 165, Finalizing the Dream Path. And like that, half a year passed in the blink of an eye since the event that shook the Jujutsu world. In this period of time, nothing remarkable really happened as everything resumed normally. All the normal people knew was that there was a terrorist attack targeting a few locations in Japan and that the authorities were thankfully able to deal with them. This of course garnered a lot of public attention as many people and organizations all over the world started pointing fingers. Events like this are really the favorites of media outlets as they can continue posting and talking about it for a very long time. From taking controversial stands, and setting the scene, to blaming certain individuals, and manipulating public opinion. As long as it allows them to achieve certain agendas and earn money, they can do anything. However, other than this, nothing really happened on that side of the world as most people quickly forgot about the events and resumed their monotonous lives. As for the mystic side, things also looked quite calm on the surface as everyone returned to doing their normal tasks. Those who needed to be dealt with were dealt with and those who should be ignored were also ignored. The 2017 year also ended with the students at Jujutsu High moving up a grade and Yuta surprisingly leaving the school to travel around with Rika. This was quite similar to what he did in the original timeline, just a lot more positive as he was no longer alone. Surprisingly, it also seems that Yuta went through the same travel path he chose in the original as he went to Africa and passed through Tunisia, which was also reported to him by Leela. It seems that even with Lorien's intervention, Gojo was still interested in the tools that could negate negative energy and cursed techniques. It's just that while some people may be interested in such things, Lorien didn't actually care much about any of it as he was currently quite busy himself. Right now, he was huddled up in his house in Japan finalizing the dream path. In the period of time since the aforementioned events, all Lorien did was analyze the concepts of soul, space, and time, and also improve the seeds he previously made, such as the chaotic energy seed, ability seed, and immortality seed. And right now, Lorien has finally reached a bottleneck as the energy required to further analyze those things reached an astronomical number. Of course, thanks to the dream trees from all over the world finally linking up, Lorien could afford to spend such amounts of energy without worrying too much about consumption. It's just that he felt that by further analyzing them forcefully, he might not be able to effectively use the gained knowledge as it had reached a higher level. So, knowing this, Lorien decided to finally stop and create the path he had been working hard for so long. Let's begin. Sitting cross-legged in the backyard with his back to the dream tree and linking to the immense reserves of dream energy, Lorien raised his hand, causing a number of seeds to appear floating above it in harmony. Doing so, he immediately began using his power, causing those seeds to merge alongside the concepts he had long prepared. First, Lorien began by constructing the awakened stage, which is based on the ability and chaotic energy seeds. In this stage, the person awakened gets an ability alongside the energy he'll use to fuel it. The awakened ability is very random and is based on many factors such as blood, origin, and outside interference, while the energy is neutral and a bit chaotic, giving it a lot of potential and room for evolution and improvement. Then, he began constructing the inner dream stage based on his knowledge of the soul and based on the power of dreams. In this stage, the person has to fight his inner demons such as fears, regrets, or anything along those lines. This battle will take place in one's inner mindscape constructed with the help of the power of dreams. This inner mindscape is similar to a dreamland but based on a person's mind and personality. It's basically one's inner world. Fighting those demons allows the person to strengthen his willpower and resolve while also gaining a better understanding of oneself. Moreover, this stage is basically permanent, as whenever a new fear, regret, or negative emotion appears, it'll instantly be displayed there, allowing the user to fight it. And the more a person battles those inner demons, the stronger the soul and inner world becomes, which will be very helpful for the next stage called Outer Dream. And constructing this stage called Outer Dream, Lorien used all the knowledge he had left, which allowed him to finally achieve his objective. In this stage, the Pathwalker has already beaten his inner demons and can now fight again outer demons and negative emotions, which are manifested in the form of negative energy, and absorb them. From that moment on, as long as the negative energy isn't too much stronger than the user, it basically can't do anything to him, rather, it'll just make him stronger. After all, the main point of this stage is to fight those negative creatures and to absorb them for one's own growth. This absorption is also very complete, as it strengthens all the three aspects of a person, being their soul, body, and energy, while also feeding back the pure insight and knowledge of the absorbed creature, while removing the unimportant memories so as to not cause any adverse effects to the user. Moreover, this isn't limited to the negative energy in this world or the cursed spirits and nightmare creatures here, rather, it is very universal and is usable in any world. This dream path is basically the perfect counter for negative energy. Not to mention that this isn't all the benefits of achieving the outer dream stage, instead, this is just the beginning. After all, if that were the case, Lorien wouldn't have had to work hard for so long to accumulate knowledge. The most important part of the outer dream level is actually the domain. Yes, Lorien actually used the knowledge he gathered about domains, improved them, and then integrated them into this path. It's just that this domain isn't as simple as the ones in Jujutsu Kaisen, which are just a manifestation of the cursed technique's inner world. Rather, this domain is actually based on the inner world constructed in the previous stage alongside the power of dreams and Lorien's knowledge of space and time. So, instead of a normal domain, this could also be called a reality marble. This gives the domain a lot more potential as it evolves with the user, while also solving the problem of not being able to target non-cursed energy users, which the normal domains in Jujutsu Kaisen are suffering from. In this way, the user will never outgrow the domain, rather, they'll evolve together, reaching unknown heights. After all, this stage is based on manifesting one's inner world into reality, it is moving from inner to outer. So, after finishing this, Lorien then moved on to adding some other things such as the immortality aspect, which allows the users to increase their lifespan with each stage and basically gaining immortality by the last one, outer stage. He also didn't forget to add his mark as the path founder and a backdoor to the path, allowing him to ban and kick whoever he chooses to, and receives knowledge of each ability awakened, which will quickly increase his knowledge and arsenal. This is a very easy thing for him as the creator of this path. However, it is impossible for others to remove or even discover it, as it is programmed in the path's basic structure. If someone wants to remove those backdoors, he basically has to reconstruct this path from the beginning, which is basically impossible as it is very much based on Lorien's own origin. And so, like that, Lorien quickly finished his task as a beautiful multicolored ball appeared floating atop his hand, which is the manifestation of the dream path seed. Looking at it, Lorien couldn't help but release a sigh of relief as a joyful smile appeared on his face. Finally! I finally finished it. Note: Dream Path, Awakened-Inner Dream-Outer Dream.
Thanks for listening.